Georgetown University and the Jesuits. According to an article I found on blackenterprise.com, Georgetown University and the Jesuits have pledged 27 million in land and money donations to descendants of 19th century enslaved people who were sold to fund the highly prestigious institution. They're not being specific though, family, using broad and ambiguous words. Will this benefit only descendants of enslaved Africans? According to CNN, Descendants of Truth and Reconciliation Foundation confirmed a gift of $10 million from Georgetown. See, when you start giving things to all these different funds, it doesn't benefit black people. It's a trick bag. Cut black people to check. And an additional 17 million from the Jesuits in the form of financial retribution and plantation land. According to media, these contributions from Georgetown University and the Jesuits are a clear indication of the role that the Jesuits and other institutions of higher education can play in supporting our mission to heal the wounds of racism in the United States, as well as a call to action to the Catholic Church to address the harm done through centuries of slaveholding. I'm just going to assume that they're talking about descendants of enslaved Africans. So I know our people are owed way more than 27 million. And the 27 million won't even go to benefiting black people. It's too many hands involved. It's going to too many funds and foundations. Not only does the Catholic Church need to atone for her sins and the role that they played in slavery, so does the Vatican. Even the so-called Pope held slaves. And most importantly, the United States government needs to come out and publicly confess for their role in the hand that they played in slavery. America was built on the backs of enslaved African Americans. This is how America grew into one of the world's superpowers that it is, by enslaving black people. America built herself up off the slave trade. This debt needs to be paid, and not until can we begin to move past this and repair the race relations. According to media, the donations hope to be a crucial step in rectifying the injustices enacted upon 227 men, women, and child sold from the Jesuits' plantation to settle Georgetown debts in 1838. The long-term plan of Georgetown is to pledge over $1 billion through the Descendants of Truth Reconciliation Foundation. See, whenever it comes to black people, they always got to give it to this foundation, this cause. Why not just cut the check specifically to black people themselves? Crazy. According to CNN, the Jesuits made a $100 million commitment to the efforts in 2021. The foundation will use the funds to invest in lifelong education of the descendants and also invested in the programs for anti-racism. You can't make this kind of stuff up. And to provide support to elderly descendants. Typical mumbo jumbo. Stop playing these games. Go ahead and cut black people to check so we can close this wealth gap and take care of the things we need to get done. We're the only group of people that have been historically oppressed up until present day. That's a trick bag, that 27 million they giving it to this foundation, this cause, that cause. No, give the money directly to black people. The same way y'all paid American Indians reparations and others. Just my thoughts on the matter. It's a distraction, a trick bag.
Oh, wow, I was muted. As you guys can see, they have an entire kingdom and that's on top of your ancestors' heads right now. Like literally, they have an entire kingdom. The kingdom that they have that is set up for all Africans, enslaved Africans, African Americans, so on and so forth. They got all these different things that they have set up for you to go and move on across your way. Got his kente hit cloth tight on his helmet. Right. It's crazy, right? It's like, wow, I'm Kunta Kinte's great grandson, and I'm here to defend the $27 million that the Jesuits are giving away to the black enslaved to try and brush away our history. Well, damn, ain't y'all the enslaved? Ain't y'all the same damn people? I'm very low, sis. It must be your thing because it's literally all the way up. Must be your sound. There's so many different things that these people continue to do and make you believe something different. This is all part of the smoke screen, right? Because see, these black navies can play, oh, we're going to give them a certain amount of reparations and such and such. Who is the them? Shit, ain't y'all the them? Ain't the them y'all? Like literally, ain't y'all the them? Seems like y'all the same people to me. I don't understand how y'all trying to make it like it's any different when you guys are the actual Black natives that you are trying to give the money to. So is it like recycling, money laundering? How's this working? Yes, Roots was absolutely plagiarized. Absolutely. A false narrative story that was created, right? We're going to get right into this Rockefeller report on the Americas so you guys can see, you know, I got to borrow it. Hold on, guys. Now it's in the Linden area. You bitches. Hold on again. They're playing with me. Now they don't want me to borrow you. I literally just had this book open yesterday. I might have to go to the PDF. Damn it. Let me see. I do have a PDF, though. Let me see. Ain't that something? Borrow again. Borrow again. I just had to borrow, unavailable to borrow at this time. Why? I'm sure no one else is going into this book like right now. Seriously, nobody even really knows too much about this book. So why is it that it's telling me that I have a borrowing issue? Let's see. We're going to start here, though. That's okay. Now I say borrow unavailable. Y'all see that shit? They done took it off of the archives. They done took it off of the archives. That's okay, though. I got the PDF. I'm not going to pull it up because we got a few books we're going through, but we're going to start just by reading some of this. Listen to this. They something else. They took y'all seen it right before y'all eyes. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all seen them remove this book right before y'all eyes as I got into it with y'all. Tell me y'all just seen it. Who seen it? It literally told me borrow the book again because I already had it on the borrow. I posted on it. I posted pages of it on TikTok. I think I posted on my community tab. Y'all see it said borrow again. So I went through it. It literally was open before I started the live like 30 minutes ago. Y'all see when I went and started it again and pressed borrow again, which lets you know it was already borrowed. I was already borrowing it. So it was telling me your expiration and now you have to borrow it again. And then y'all see it went to borrow unavailable. But I already got you, baby. I read them PDF to your ass. But yeah, let's go. We're going to read what they got right here, just so you guys can hear this little bit of the portion that's available. And we're going to go from here to the next book. Let's go. They play so much. Look. Don't tell me the sound ain't going. Listen, y'all. Whoa, are they tripping? Yep. Look, they took the audio down. This shit archive, I'm gonna sue the fuck out y'all. Like real talk. I ain't even want to put it out there, but y'all about to get y'all ass in. This right here is in real time. This is video evidence right here of the bullshit y'all just did. Like real talk. Video evidence of this shit. Like what? Look at this. Look. Now it's going to borrow for an hour. Oh, borrow unavailable. But I just had a reborrow. What are you talking about? Stop playing with me. This is so crazy. It will not even allow me to read. Let it read.
Among the peoples of the Western Hemisphere, and because there were 23 countries to visit, each with its own special problems, it seemed clear to me that I could not do this job alone. It would have been impossible for one person to spend enough time in each country to talk with all the key people in the various areas in both public and private life. Therefore, I invited a group of outstanding citizens of the United States to go with me. Each was an expert in a specialized field such as trade, finance, education, science, culture, women's activities, agriculture, labor, and other fields. The names of these citizens who gave so generously and so effectively of their time and talents on these missions appear at the end of this letter. 20 to 25 of these distinguished advisors were on each trip. In each country, a schedule of visits with the key people was worked out in advance of our arrival. While I was meeting with the president or prime minister of the country, and later with the minister of foreign affairs and often with the entire cabinet, each of the advisors would be meeting with leaders, both public and private, in fields of common interest and concern. In this way, the advisors on your mission were able to visit and counsel with some 100 to 200 people in each country. It would have taken weeks in each country for one person to cover the same ground in similar depth. Furthermore, no one could have the combined expertise of the advisory members of your mission. They are an extraordinary group of men and women, and they served their country selflessly and brilliantly. Through this letter, I would like to share with you my profound admiration and deep gratitude for the contribution they have made. Through these saturation visits, the members of your mission were able to sit down and talk, as knowledgeable colleagues, with experts of all sorts on specific problems and to gain new and sensitive insights on what could be done more effectively to achieve our common objectives. I must also take advantage of this letter to say to you, Mr. President, how grateful and appreciative we are for the time and invaluable advice these outstandingly able leaders from public and private life in the various countries gave to the members of your mission. Each member of the mission has written detailed reports on his findings, all of which will be part of the final record. In addition, intensive group discussions were held during and after our travels. This group effort and the invaluable counsel it produced are reflected in the findings of this report. However, no attempt was made to achieve a consensus, and I accept sole responsibility for the recommendations in the report. In addition to being able to communicate directly with national leaders, I was also able to communicate with the people of each country through press, radio, and television interviews. We not only listened to the problems, hopes, and aspirations of the people and the leaders of the other American republics, but also were able to get their advice and counsel and their assessment of the political realities of today. Deeper understanding and new approaches to solutions of our common
all these tactics are illegal.
As everyone knows,
keep that in mind.
The mission encountered difficulties. The new military government of Peru stated that our visit would be inconvenient and requested indefinite postponement. This action was the result of a specific incident, growing out of the dispute between the United States and Peru over fishing rights and expropriation of oil fields, but it was related to our mission. After a student was accidentally shot and killed in a demonstration during the mission's early visit to Honduras, student groups, stimulated by subversive elements on an organized basis throughout the hemisphere, used the incident as a rallying point in attempting to prevent our visits or to disrupt them. As a result of these demonstrations and the threats of violence, together with certain delicate internal political situations, the governments of Chile and Venezuela also asked us to postpone our visit, thus reducing to 20 the number of countries on our itinerary. Suggestions have been made that the trips were ill-timed and should have been canceled. In actual fact, the trips were very well timed. They were timed to the opportunity and will of a new administration to formulate a new policy for the hemisphere. And it became clear as our trips progressed that, without such a new policy, the nations of this hemisphere would steadily and rapidly become less disposed because of disillusionment and cynicism to deal candidly and effectively with the United States and with confidence in the mutuality of our interest and goodwill. In any case, the timing had nothing to do with the demonstrations and violence that occurred. They can be attributed to these causes. There is general frustration over the failure to achieve a more rapid improvement in standards of living. The United States, because of its identification with the failure of the Alliance for Progress to live up to expectations, is blamed. People in the countries concerned also used our visit as an opportunity to demonstrate their frustrations with the failure of their own governments to meet their needs. In addition, demonstrations that began over grievances were taken over and exacerbated by anti-U.S. and subversive elements which sought to weaken and discredit the United States and their own governments in the process. It is significant that these same elements were active in demonstrations, threats, and acts of violence in democratic countries as well as in those with military governments. In fact, one mission member remarked that the only frightening confrontation of all our travels was that caused by an SDS-organized student demonstration at John F. Kennedy International Airport as we returned to New York City at the end of our fourth trip. Had we canceled the visits, it would have been seen as weakness and fear on the part of the United States government. This would have done much to discredit the United States in the other Americas. It would, moreover, have undermined the priority and importance which you attach to the hemisphere's needs. Thus it would have lost us as a nation an opportunity, one that is increasingly rare, to work out our common problems for our common benefit. As it was, by carrying out the mission despite the difficulties, the determination and purposefulness of the new administration were clearly evidenced. The reception that the mission received from government officials and from leaders in private fields was open and warm. One important byproduct of the demonstrations and violence was that they put the mutuality of the problems of our hemisphere on the front pages of our newspapers, on the nation's television screens, and therefore in the minds of most Americans. It is unfortunate that these problems only get attention in this fashion. If we in the mission served as a lightning rod, if we focused attention on the deep-rooted nature of the hemisphere's concerns and what should be done about them, the difficulties and criticism that we encountered were well worth it. I appreciated the opportunity of keeping in touch with you during our trips and visiting with you between trips, for in this way I was able to give you a general review of our findings as we went along. And I am delighted that some specific actions have already been taken as a result. You have already received the reports on my personal conversations and observations in each country. This report is based on the mission's findings, checked against many other sources. One that was particularly helpful was the constructive report of the House Subcommittee on Inter-American Affairs, headed by Representative Dante Fascell. We also acknowledge the cooperation of the respective chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I would particularly like to express my gratitude for the interest, cooperation, and participation of the State Department. May this report, with its recommendations, help you to serve the cause of better relations and progress for all people in the Western Hemisphere. With warm best wishes, respectfully, Nelson A. Rockefeller, New York, New York. Advisory members of the mission: George Beebe, Senior Managing Editor, Miami Herald; Victor Borella, Special Assistant to the Governor of New York for Labor Affairs; David Bronheim, Director, Center for Inter-American Relations, DR. Detlef W. Bronk, past President of the National Academy of Science, Johns Hopkins University and the Rockefeller University; William F. Butler, Vice President and Chief Economist of the Chase Manhattan Bank; James M. Cannon, Special Assistant to the Governor of New York; Miss Evelyn Cunningham, Director, Women's Unit, State of New York, DR. Gordon F. Ekholm, Curator of Mexican Archaeology, American Museum of Natural History, DR. Robert Goldwater, Chairman, Administrative Committee, Museum of Primitive Art, and Professor of Fine Arts, New York University, DR. Harold B. Gotaz, Dean, Technological Institute, Northwestern University, DR. Samuel B. Gould, Chancellor, State University of New York, DR. Walter D. Harris, Jr., Associate Professor of City Planning, Department of Architecture, Yale University; John B. Hightower, Executive Director, New York State Council on the Arts, MRS. Patricia Hitt, Assistant Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, DR. G. Kenneth Holland, President, Institute of International Education; Thomas P. F. Hoving, Director, Metropolitan Museum of Art; Frederick K. Howard, Consultant, Inter-American Development Bank, MRS. Flora Campman, former Republican National Committee woman for Texas; Augustine R. Marissi, Chairman and President, Borden, Inc. MRS. Dorothy McHugh, Republican National Committee woman for New York; Andrew McClellan, Inter-American Representative, AFL-CIO, DR. Alan D. Miller, Commissioner of Mental Hygiene, State of New York, DR. Emil M. Mrak, Chancellor Emeritus, University of California at Davis; James Noel, Jr., Director for Central America and the Caribbean, Catholic Relief Services, U.S. Catholic Conference. Gen. Robert W. Porter, Jr., USA, RET, former Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Southern Command DR, Clark W.
Crazy.
Reynolds, Associate Professor of Economics, Stanford University DR. W. Kenneth Ryland, Chief Physician, New York, U.S. Steel Corporation COL. John D. Silvera, Program Coordinator, New York State Office on Urban Affairs Samuel P. Singletary, Special Assistant to the Governor of New York Rev. Wyatt T. Walker, Special Assistant to the Governor of New York for Urban Affairs Arthur K. Watson, Chairman of the Board, IBM World Trade Corporation, former President of the International Chamber of Commerce DR. Leroy Weirla, Fellow, Institute of Politics, Harvard University DR. Clifton R. Wharton, Jr., Vice President, Agricultural Development Council Monroe Wheeler, Counselor to the Trustees, Museum of Modern Art. List of advisors Thomas H. Wolfe, Vice President and Director of Television Documentaries, ABC News George D. Woods, Consultant, First Boston Corporation and former President, World Bank Special Advisors Staff Richard Aldrich Elizabeth Boyd John R. Camp and Boylan Jerry Danzig Floor Brennan COL. John Deaver Harold Brown Barron Freely Rodney Campbell. John W. Johnston, Jr. Arlene Cherniak Jerome I. Levinson and Coleman Kenneth M. Robin Evelyn Cook Dr. Hyman Zuckerman William Eckhoff Maj. Edward Galvin Sally Gardner Warren E. Gardner, Jr. Advance Group Louise Greiner Joseph H. Boyd, Jr. Director Georgia Herrick Ronald Abney Audrey Hoffman Joseph W. Kanzari Walter Karpowich Henry Diamond Lt. William Lovelock David Duffy Nancy Magins Theodore Halabi Ronald Majorana Kenneth T. Hoek, Jr. Arthur Mann Lincoln Hoffman Hugh Morrow George Humphreys Mary Nestor James Keeper Maxine Paul A. Bruce Manley Martha Plummer John W. McGrath Haley Rodwell John Moss Nancy Shea Joseph E. Persico Bert Smith David Reef Walter Thompson Craig Thorne 3 Marshall Watts Gerald I. Wolfgang N.C. Whitman. Special acknowledgement for counsel and advice on the preparation of the report to the President, Hugh Morrow Oscar M. Ruephausen James M. Cannon Allen D. Miller, M.D. Forward. The following report and recommendations are the outgrowth of what the members of the mission learned in discussions with more than 3,000 leaders of the 20 countries which the mission visited. We found in the course of our travels and talks that our perspective concerning the nations we visited and the hopes of their people was more meaningful when taken in the context of the entire Western Hemisphere. The quality of life in one area of the hemisphere is inseparably linked with all the rest. Moreover, if we do not meet the fundamental needs of our own people at home, we cannot expect to inspire or assist the people of other nations to meet their own needs. The more we understood the situation in the other republics, the more clearly we understood what was happening at home. And the more we appreciated the need for unity of the hemisphere. We have, accordingly, in this report looked at the challenges and opportunities from the point of view of the hemisphere as a whole. Because of this, we have written this report with the hope that Canada might join with all the American republics in a truly hemisphere response to what are in fact common concerns. We were also moved by the hope that one day Cuba can be restored to the society of free men. These trips were an enriching experience. To convey some sense of our personal reactions, as a group, to this fruitful opportunity to listen to the responsible people in South and Central America and the Caribbean, a preamble is included in our report. NAR.
Dang, I don't want to do no more. Don't stop, y'all. Hold on. Dang, it was going good, right? Let's see. Oh, it stopped. It switched to share. It switched once, probably after it got to a page because I'm not sharing. But either way, let's go. We'll get back to that because I'm going to get that to work. If I have to, we'll go back over it again when I feel like reading through a because it's quite a few pages. I do have the PDF, but I like to go through the books because I can make it larger on the screen, make it read for me, so on and so forth. All right, guys. So let's look at this real quick before I drop this down. Whoever was aware of the copper-colored romance magazines? Have you guys ever seen this? The Copper Romance magazine, the colored indigenous people, Copper Romance. Anybody aware of this? Put a one in the chat if you've seen this before. If you guys are aware of it, we won't read any of it. So let me know. I'll read some of it, but I won't go through the whole thing if you guys are aware. Right? Let me see. Y'all want me to read a bit of it so you can get some information, or you guys aware? Let me get some info in the chat. Let me know if you guys are aware. You want to read it? Y'all want me to read a bit? Okay. Islam said you are aware, so you guys are aware of it. So you're familiar with the information. Okay. Would you guys like to read some of this, or let's move on to the articles of incorporation real quick, because I want to go through some of that and get to a few other books. Nope. Yes. No. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm getting confused. One. Yes. Nope. Not aware. Thanks, Hawk. Okay. So check it out. Okay. Read it a bit. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. Perfect. That's what I want to know. I don't want to waste time, guys, because y'all know I like to get right to the juice. So we're going to do this real quick. We're going to read a bit of it. Since even if you are aware, some people can just hear some of it, because we'll read a bit of. I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing three things at one time. Okay. So once upon a time, we actually knew who we were. We know now. We're going back to the realization. I'm just going to throw this out there. Think whatever you want with this information. European colonists in several instances referred to the indigenous Americans as the copper-colored race. Well, actually, they went further than that, and on many occasions, even described the indigenous population as having coarse hair, dark skin, and was pretty much the standard and not the exception for indigenous Americans. I don't know why this won't let me highlight. I hate that. Y'all know I love to put stuff in the chat. Okay, anyway. It says Christopher Columbus wrote in his journal that Taínos had beautiful, muscular, slender bodies with copper-colored skin, and wore short haircuts with a long hank in the back of the head. They were clean-shaven and hairless. That's just one example, though. There are several instances of the colonists and the indigenous people describing themselves as dark-skinned or copper-skinned people. There were white and black Indians. Just to clarify that, I want to mention, guys, there was a prince, Magog. I went over this story before. He's actually the prince that came down from, oh my gosh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's been so long. Hold on. Either way, he came from a Caucasus area. They came to the Americas like way back. I can't remember the time. This is like, we're talking like way back. I don't want to even say the wrong time period, because right now I can't even think what it was, but I know it was before like the 14. It was somewhere between the 9 and the 1100s. Let's say that between the 9 and 1100s. Some of these people actually came down, right? When they came down, they were on the water's edge, right? They started, tribes, this is where we started getting the Siberian natives from, right? Before the Native Americans were built into the plantations and the reservations, right? Because these people came down and they just end up migrating. Some of them stay here. Then next thing you know, they start mixing with some of the Indians in that particular area. If I'm not mistaken, it was Florida and California area. They were mixing and blending with the copper colored, they came in as white tea people. When they started mixing and mingling, they became certain tribes affiliated with certain tribes, so on and so forth. This is where some of the tribes in that area came from. Now, on the same sense of that, not all of them, because we were already here. That's why they were mixing and mingling. But on the same sense of that, those ones that were actually mixing and mingling, those are the ones that did a lot of the trading as well. When their ancestors started coming back down in like the Spanish and like the 1400s, they started coming in the areas. They were more prone to assisting them because they had the paler skin, like some of them, because some of them were still, very pale. So at that time, they started blending, and then they started helping or assisting these Spanish. This is how the Spanish ended up getting in, because the Calusa Indians held them off for like 400 years. We did the build on that. Go back and look at the build on the Calusa Indians of Florida. They held the Spanish off for like 400 years, but then they had these that were assisting and helping them. The same thing that was going on in the Appalachian Mountain area. They had the Melungeons. This is the era of family or leniency from like Abraham Lincoln, Elvis Presley. Oh my gosh, I can't even think of all the names of people. There's so many people. I'm not very good with names, guys. Y'all know that. But the Melungeons were the same thing. The Spanish started mixing with the Indians over in the Appalachian Mountains, and then boom, here you go. So we actually not the Spanish. I'm sorry, the Moors and the Spanish were mixed with them. First the Spanish, and then the Moors came in. So they were all blending in together, so on and so forth, a whole nother story. But let's read a little bit of this so we can get to the next book. I don't even know where I stopped at. Okay, right here. William Byrd II, a British planter, a British planter. Who is a planter? A planter is a homesteader, a pioneer, or a frontiersman, correct? The author from the colonial Virginia wrote extensively about his encounters with the Indians. We read so much about that yesterday, right? We read so much about the Virginia Indians. So if you didn't watch that video, you definitely need to go back because it will be on members only soon. I did leave a couple of builds up that'll go back to our members only page in about a week or so. So please take advantage of checking those out. I want you guys to make sure you're getting the information, but keeping in mind some things I want to try to, keep the information because it's just, I don't even want to get into it. Okay, the Nottoway were described by William Byrd as people of mahogany skin. Mahogany wood is what? A reddish color. Have you seen, if you're familiar, do you guys know wood? Mahogany wood is a reddish wood. So he saw copper reddish people, right? Of the copper colored ones of Nottawa town, long before any extensive intermarrying with either Europeans or Africans, even before intermarriage with either Europeans or Africans, a distinct difference because we know these were the people of the land. It shows you right here, even in this time. Upon first contact with the colonial settlers, traders and land speculators of Nottawa were of dark-skinned tribes. Okay, the history of the divine line of Betwixt in Virginia and North Carolina. William Byrd in 1674. In the Dover publication said in one of his diary entries, okay? I'm sure you've heard of Lewis Clark, right? Their journey through the Midwest on the west coast of what would later become the United States was regarded reading in school. Was required reading in school. That required for what? Required for indoctrination, to make sure that you get the story that is planted in the brain. They have to plant things in the nation to be able to take over the soil, and then within the mind, being able to take over the space in the mind of matter by brain mapping, literally writing information on your mind to take over truth and light with the false light, which is what? Radium, assumptions of radium, right? Make sure you guys check out that video I dropped in the chat. I think it's hoodooism via brain mapping, and it'll show you that actually them creating the theaters, all these things just to go against you, all mental alchemy, mental and spiritual alchemy, which affects what? The body. The body is mostly water, so memory and information has the effect of alchemy on the body, the actual water. Right? So it's important to make sure you have truth that you're putting in and not the falsity of radium. Listen. Colored people that they encountered everywhere, they were refuted. And descriptive term, redskin, they were the redskin. As they said, and we had redskin people as well. When I was young, I was a lot lighter, but I used to be red. I was a red skin color. Some people get darker, some people's tone doesn't. I don't know. Some babies are born very, very, very light, then they'll get dark. It may depend on the area or the amount of uromelanin or neuromelanin that's in your body when it comes to your lineage. And as you get older, these things start to develop, your skin changes, so on and so forth. So we used to say red when I was a kid. So, this is something that's been around forever. So the red skin, as they said, instead that several Indian tribes had dark brown skin. Some had red skin. This is the red man. Then when they'll say, oh, the red man, they're talking about the pale ones. They're talking about those pale natives. No, the heck they're not. They're not talking about the pale natives. The pale natives are the mestizos, but the red man is the red skin copper Indian. While Indians have dark skin and color ranges from yellowish brown to a dark reddish brown, they do not have red skin. It's just a term. The term red skin may have come from a variety of sources. One of the explanations comes from the fact that many Indians painted their body with a mixture of vermilion and grease. That's the color. We see different colors. They'll take certain dirts for colors, red dirt, clay, making basically like a makeup, so on and so forth. White men had traded with Indians, quickly learning that vermilion, a bright red pigment, was one of the most valuable trade items. One of the most valuable trade items. Were you guys aware of that? That the complexion is the usual copper-colored brown of the North American tribe, though the complexion is rather lighter than that of the Indians of Missouri. Listen, North American tribes, though the complexion is rather lighter than of the Indians of Missouri. In Missouri, the Indians were noted or known to have darker skin, browner skin, right? And if you were from a northern tribe, you were known to have lighter skin, right? And the lips very thick and the nose of a moderate size, fleshy wide at the extremities with large nostrils. That's me. That's me. I have the little pig snout. And generally low between the eyes, like myself. Though there are more instances of high alkaline aquiline noses, and the eyes are generally black, though we occasionally see them of a dark yellowish brown and with a black pupil. Keeping in mind, a lot of us have eyes that change, right? My eyes are brown, but in certain seasons, they'll get a little lighter brown. So I have 4 children. So 2 of my children, the same thing. In certain seasons, one of them, her eyes get lighter and they stay a little bit lighter. The other one, hers change and then they'll change back like mine. So it all depends on what's going on with the pigment inside of you. Check out the 1828 definition of American. Important because of the insight it provides into what the true Native Americans were going through at the time with the European colonists. American, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or the copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of European-born in America. Listen, check it out. I'm going to read this part again. Very important. I hate they won't let me highlight. If someone could put it in the chat, it'll be great. If not, you don't have to. But this is one of those things I would like to highlight, but for some reason I can't highlight in this article. It says American. It says a native of America. America was originally a native of America, which would be who? You, the indigenous copper Indians that they were describing, right? Then it says originally applied to the Aboriginals. It was originally applied to the Aboriginals, which is who? You. All of this was originally applied to the Aboriginals. So we'll have this sentence that says the American is a native of American applied to Aboriginals. This is the originality of the term American, right? Now it's a change. When they say or, that means something switched. That would mean like reconstruction, the change of things, just like we have a change in environment, our food, all these things, reconstruction in words and terms to blend them in so that you don't see the difference. Just like what? Afro-American and African-American. They tried to make people think that Afro and Afri are the same thing, but they are definitely not. They're 2 different consonants, right? Okay, let's go. Or the copper-colored races, or the copper-colored races. So these are all implied together. So now we can see this when it says, or the copper-colored races, that implies that the Aboriginals are what? The copper-colored races, right? And this was applied to them being a Native American. They've even stolen that from us. Now check this out. Found here by the Europeans. Found here by the Europeans. They were found. How you find somebody that's already somewhere? This kills me too with this statement. It's something that irks my nerves. Like when every time I see, oh, found it here, found this, found it, found its foundation, all this stuff. It's like it's found here by the European. How you find something? This is not no finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Is that why y'all made or created that saying to assume that, oh, we found the land and we start, just laying our shit the hell out. Now we can assume the land. No, it's no finders, keepers, losers, weepers. We this is our stuff, like, period. Stop playing with us. And y'all do too much invasion in the mind, body, and spirit and into our entire soil. This shit is absurd. And there has to be a stop to it, right? There has to be a stop to it, right? It says, but now it is applied, listen, but now it is applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. But now it is applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Remember, I showed you guys all the tribal cards. What 90% of them were straight European, right? You didn't see any of that even hardly look like natives. Most of them were Europeans, not even natives, right? And as you guys know, when we're looking at these Europeans, they could be what? Half of them, I'm pretty sure, are those Black natives and white skin, right? Remember, we read in the encyclopedia, it told you that the Europeans were interchangeable with the Africans, remember? Because the Africans also came here, and some of them had pale skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes, right? These are the Jesuits. So the Jesuits coming in, right, having their part in the colonization, pioneers, everything that's going on. These people have come in and situated themselves in a place, and now they have you focus on something else. Look at those people, because see, now we're going to play a role and put ourselves in with the Europeans, because no one can tell the difference, because our skin looks the same. And then we'll take them because their skin looks like theirs, and we'll start blending them. See, they're not going to know the difference. We'll tell them, hey, you guys are wholly out of Africa. You guys came from Africa, da, 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 da. This is all European nation. This is a New England over here, not the old damn England. In the entire time, this is what? The ancient old world, correct? Let's keep reading real quick. We're almost done with this item. I'm gonna stop in a second, rather. The autochthonous Americans, the autochthonous Americans were without a doubt dark skinned. The autochthonous Americans were without a doubt dark skinned people, right? With thick lips, wide nostrils, and coarse hair, with all different degrees of curls and waviness, right? Here are some of the descriptions of the Europeans who had no motivation to describe the indigenous Americans in the manner that makes them sound like the modern day so-called African American. And Indian baptism. Here we go. Let's start with church, school, and the health facility. Get you in all ways, the mind, body, and the spirit. Check this out. The baptism water is ready. The white child of the red skin rests on the arms of its godfather. After their birth, the children of the red, the copper-colored Indian, like those of the black Negro, look like white for a while. They receive the skin color of their parents later. Interesting, right? Y'all want to hear that again? In Indian baptism, the baptismal water is ready. The white child of the red skin rests on the arms of its godfather. After their birth, the children of the red, copper-colored Indian, like those of the black Negro, two separate entities, the children of the copper-colored Indians and those of the black Negro, right? They look for white for a while. I just was mentioning that. You know, a lot of us are really bright. When we come out there, next thing you know, you start getting your ancestors' genes, and it starts to come down on you. And it's like, okay, the child just starts to change color, right? They receive the skin color of their parents later, right? Okay. Sketches from North America in Augsburg, 1845 archives in the University of Notre Dame. You can see some visuals of that, so on and so forth. We're going to start reading this right now so we can get to the book. Let me check with the chat. I don't know what's going on. I ain't been over here running my mouth. Peace, love, and bliss to everyone that has come in. You guys know you guys are awesome. You're everything. And yeah, everything that is not a part of me, and that is me as well. That's why you're here with me right now, right? We're all part of the same ether, the same vibration and frequency. We are all on the systematic energy that you must be tuned into, right? You must have that magnetic frequency to draw what is of the same frequency, right? Yes, read some of it, please. Okay. Peace, Pooh Chill. Sis says she never seen it. Yes. Finland, yes. OCO, Keith Cobbs. Peace. TT, peace. Yes. Chris Staples, grandest. Everybody that came in, my sis Dee, everyone that came in, Bad Saint, TT, Enoch, my sis, Yanita, Grandis, to everyone that is coming in. I'm trying to get through the chat, y'all, so we can keep it moving, okay? Yanita, Grandis says Suzanne, T.I., peace, India, American Indian, my sis. excuse me, Charlene, grandest to all you beautiful ladies that come in and all of the awesome, outstanding men that we have this morning in the chat. Let's get through this, y'all. Oh, I was so glad to stop reading. Y'all see my throat done got dry as heck already. Melungeons and mulattoes. Well, yeah. Well, basically, a melungeon is a mulatto, but to be particular or specifics is just so you have a clear understanding. The melungeons are particular to the line that literally came from the Appalachian Mountains. So they were definitely mixed with Spaniards. I did a build on it. You might can go back and find this. I know I got so many dang videos on there, but there's one I did, and I think the title, it definitely has melungeons in the title. It says something about melungeon, and it'll explain to you, where they came in, how they started blending. I show you all the people that you thought was white, but they actually were melungeons passing for white. They something else. These black ass natives, I keep telling y'all, and they all play together. And yes, they are mulatto, because mulatto simply means mixed, right? A mixed race. That could even mean mixed Indians. You could be a Cherokee and a Blackfoot, so you would still be a mulatto. So these terms and names, guys, like we can't even care about that shit half the time, because all of it most of the time is nonsense. Okay, hold on, guys. We're going to do the Articles of Confederation, because we'll get back to that. I'm going to do a couple of things, so we'll read a little bit more of it today. And then we'll try to get into something else. I'm going to keep this Rockefeller report up, because this thing right here tripping me out. This thing tripped me out. I'm definitely going to get into that. And then I'm going to, I got to find a PDF, because let me leave that, because I'm going to remember to search for the PDF. That's crazy. Okay, and now we will get back to, is this the articles? I put the wrong one. Okay, this is, where did we stop at? We read some of the articles of incorporation, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. We read the slavery question. Dang, I thought I left it on the right page. I think I pulled it back up again. Shouldn't have touched it. Hold on, guys, because we were actually getting to reading the articles of incorporation. We're going to come back to this to definitely finish it out, but I'm going to read a little bit more. Okay, we're going to start here, actually, because I really don't remember. If I should when we start reading this, guys, I can't remember where we stopped. For me, with already obtained some of this information, I'm not going to remember. If you guys can remember exactly where we stopped, I thought that we stopped on the Articles of Confederation, and we did not get into them. Can someone press 1 in the chat if you guys remember? And is that where we were going to start, right, with the Articles of Incorporation, I believe, or was it the Articles of Federation? Wait a minute, let's see. Yeah, I could have sworn we read this part already. Did we do? No, we didn't go all the way to 75. Hold on, let me see. Maybe we were getting ready to start there. Slavery question. Did we read the slavery question? Somebody press 1 if we read the slavery question. Did we read the slavery question? Do you guys recall? Oh, let me present. I thought you guys were looking. I'm sorry. Hold on. Now you have to tell me. Do you guys remember if we were, which page we were on? Dang it. I thought I had left it. I think we were, I think we passed the governor's thing. We were on the Articles of Incorporation, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Okay. Okay, let's see. No, we didn't get down this far. We did not get this far. Somebody try to remind me. I thought that I had the same page pulled up, but obviously we definitely, I know we read on the slaveholder part. We definitely bypassed this, right? Let's see. In a minute, I'm gonna go somewhere else because I don't recall, and I don't want to read something to you guys that okay, hold on. Okay, maybe we didn't get we read some of the slave info. Okay, refuse to accomplish outrage, pause. I feel like I read this to you guys, but I'm gonna start here because I'm not exactly sure where we started at, where we stopped at. I know we were talking about the slavery part, but I thought I wanted to get into the Articles of Incorporation. So for some reason, yeah, I think I do need to do that. Let me find it. I can't remember. I think it's on page 90 something. This is the Declaration of Independence. I know we didn't get this far. We didn't get this far. We didn't get this far. Okay, so I got to go way back. Hold on, guys, because this is driving me nuts. I definitely don't want to bypass anything important. Okay, so we finished the Constitution. So let's do that. Let's go past the Constitution. And see, I think all right, let me see. It's 59. Where's the page on that? Okay, let me see. Voyage. The voyage. We read that too, right? Man, I'll be doing so much reading, y'all. I'm sorry. It's not easy for me to I don't think we did read the voyage. Maybe we'll start here. You guys want to start here? Press 1. If y'all want to just go now, press 1, press 1, press 1. Because I'm not exactly sure the page we ended on. And, it'll all come back around either way, Let's do that. Let me see. Let's start this here. Damn, I don't want to. Maybe I'll fast forward as it's going and we'll see. Let's go.
Wixfam %LD colonial and entered at the New York Post Office as second-class matter. Number 9.
Oh yeah, we definitely
May
passed that.
1893. Price 5 cents. Copyright 1893 by A. Lovell and Co. Documents describing the voyage of John Cabot in 1497.
Yeah.
The first European to see the continent of North America after the period of the Northmen was John Cabot, a native of Genoa, who had been naturalized at Venice and had resided there for some years. John Cabot sailed from Bristol, England, and prosecuted his voyage under a license from Henry VII, King of England. The voyage was made in 1490.
Hold on, guys. Let me see. This is doing too much right now. I'm getting a little annoyed because I don't like this order, and that's what's going on. Hold on. It's throwing me off in my damn head because I had my whole mindset on what I was going over. So now I don't know how I paid, how I missed the Articles of Incorporation. Let me search it real quick because right now I'm getting annoyed. I'm thinking this one page is a different page. I might be thinking about a whole nother book. Hold on, guys. All right, where's the articles at? I thought it said the page on here. Maybe it don't. Damn. I still got to search because it don't even tell me. Okay, let me see. Hold on, guys. Okay, let me try. This, that. Order successions. Maybe we can just start here because this right here. Or we'll come back to this. Let me do this, guys. We're going to put something else on up. And then we're going to come back to this. And let me get it to the right page because that's going to annoy me. I'm going to look at the video while y'all listen at this so I can see where we actually stopped at. And we'll go from there. Let's keep this going. All right. Let's see. We're going to go here because this was going to be the next one. Did I pull up the wrong page now? Hold on. Okay, there we go. The union. The more perfect union formed. Really? The perfect union? Who the hell asked y'all for union? We never want to be united with y'all ass. Like, literally. I don't know what y'all thought. Okay, here we go. Let's go.
A more perfect union formed. 1. Fatal defects in the Articles of Confederation. No government can endure without the power of raising taxes to support it and the power of raising armies to defend it, but these powers were lacking in the Articles of Confederation. As long as the war lasted, the states honored the requisitions of Congress, but
it's not laid out the same exact way as the entire leaflet is, guys. That's why I say I'll go back to the leaflet so you guys can see, because that's the original leaflet that they had. So this is the same thing, talking about the Articles of Confederation. So just listen up. Same exact information, just in a different book.
That danger had passed, they were very indifferent. 2. Bankruptcy threatened. The amount of money asked of the states from 1781 to 1788 was about $16 million. The returns were only about $500,000 a year, barely enough to pay the running expenses, to say nothing of the payment of interest. Congress, therefore, could not hope to borrow any more money, and the government was on the brink of bankruptcy by 1787. 3. The government not respected. Lacking the power to support and defend itself, the government was not regarded at home or abroad as sovereign. The states acted as independent nations. Being themselves on the verge of financial ruin,
and they still are.
Duties on imports from other states.
Each state is an independent nation.
But a lack of uniformity gave a monopoly of commerce to the states having the lowest duties. The gold and silver having all been sent abroad to pay interest and import duties, the states issued immense amounts of paper money, and Congress could not restrain them. The paper money.
So 31. They took your gold,
the gold
right?
And silver having all
they
been
took
sent.
Your gold and sent it abroad to all these other places to do what? To pay interest and to import the duties that the states are issued to the immense amounts of paper money, the fake ass debt. But the gold and the silver is what the value. That's only common sense.
Abroad to pay interest and import duties, the states issued immense amounts of paper money, and Congress could not restrain them. The paper money. 31. Depreciated. Debts could not be collected.
That's happening now.
Sheriff sales were daily occurrences.
They're trying to put you in the broke
Lawlessness
status.
Followed, and in some places, notably in Massachusetts, open rebellion against the state authorities broke out. Knowledge of these difficulties could not be kept from foreign nations, especially England. They expected the Confederation to go to pieces. They refused to make commercial treaties or to send diplomatic agents to represent them in the United States. To restore confidence abroad, Congress asked the states 3 times to amend the articles so as to give the Confederation power to regulate trade and commerce. Each time the amendment was defeated by a vote of 12 states to 1. 4. The Trade Convention. Early in 1786, a member of Congress declared that Congress must be vested with more powers, or the federal government must fall. The idea that the form of federal government needed radical amendment now became general. At this critical juncture, Virginia, which had the year before been in negotiation with Maryland for the regulation of trade on the Potomac River, invited all the states to send delegates to a trade convention at Annapolis, in September 1786. As only Virginia, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York were represented at Annapolis, it was recommended to all the states that a convention meet in Philadelphia, in May 1787, for the purpose of rendering the Constitution of the federal government adequate. Congress approved the convention, and all the states, except Rhode Island, elected delegates. 5. The Constitutional Convention. On May 25, the quorum of the 65 delegates elected assembled in the State House in Philadelphia. George Washington was chosen president. Most of the members were men of Revolutionary fame. Franklin, now 81 years old, was the Nestor of the convention. Madison made more suggestions and speeches than any other member, and, as the author of the plan that was finally adopted, was unquestionably the leader on the floor. Hamilton was also a member, but because his colleagues left in disgust before the convention was over, he had less influence than his ability merited. Moreover, he wanted to do away with the state boundaries and create a centralized republic. Gouverneur Morris, as chairman of the Committee on Arrangement, is to be credited with the clear and simple language of the Constitution. James Wilson was the best read lawyer on the floor. Whatever of Blackstone was brought before the convention was always submitted to Wilson. The convention lasted until September 17, 1787. The sessions were secret. All votes were cast by states. A journal was kept, but it was a mere outline of the proceedings. Madison kept a private journal of much greater value. It was not published until 1839, 3 years after his death. Two plans were presented for the formation of a new government: the Virginia Plan, drawn by Madison, and the New Jersey Plan, drawn by Patterson. The Virginia Plan provided that the federal government should have supreme executive, legislative, and judicial powers, and that representation in both houses of the Congress should be based on the population or the wealth of a state. This plan was favored by the large states.
Everybody wants to in their state.
The New Jersey Plan favored a revision of the Articles of Confederation, so as to give Congress the power to regulate commerce, raise revenue, and coerce the states.
But how's that
It also provided for equal representation in Congress. The small states favored the New Jersey Plan. The difference was compromised by adopting the basis of representation in vogue in the state of Connecticut, namely, popular representation in the lower house and equal representation in the upper. The next difficulty caused a division of the states into free and slave. The free states wanted representation in the House of Representatives based on the number of free people, the slave states, on the number of free and slave. This difference was compromised by representing slaves as other persons, 5 of whom should be equal to 3 free persons, both in the matter of representation and in the apportionment of direct taxes. The third great difficulty which caused a division among the states was commercial and agricultural.
Commercial and agriculture.
And Maryland wanted questions of commerce decided by a majority vote, the agricultural states, by a 2/3 vote. The compromise effected was that a mere majority should decide commercial questions, but that exports should not be taxed, and that the importation of slaves should not be prohibited prior to 1808.
They need them labor workers.
These 3 great compromises having been accepted, there was no further danger of the dissolution of the convention. While the 39 members who were still in attendance at the close were signing their names, Franklin, looking toward Washington's chair, on the back of which was cut a sun, said to those around him, "I have often and often, in the course of the session, and in the solicitude of my hopes and fears as to its issue, looked at that figure behind the president without knowing whether it was the rising or the setting sun. Now I know it is the rising Sunday." 6. The ratification on September 28th.
We're going to get into a couple more books. I want you guys to hear the Articles of Confederation because we went to the Constitution yesterday. I'm going to let it play out some, but I want to get into 2 other books. While this is playing, I'm going to pop 2 books up in the chat. Let me know if you guys want to get into the first or the second one. Put 1 or 2 in the chat because I can't decide which one I want to go to because I have 3 other things I want to try to add to this, but let's see the order you guys may be interested in. So if you want the first book I'm putting up, put a 1 in the chat. If y'all want to do the second book, put a 2 in the chat. Let's go.
Congress submitted the Constitution to the states for ratification, which had to be made by conventions of the people in 9 states before it could go into effect. The smaller states, together with Pennsylvania, ratified it first. In the states of Massachusetts, New York, Virginia, and North Carolina, the ratification was for months uncertain, and was only accomplished by very small majorities. North Carolina did not ratify it until after Washington had been president 6 months or more. Rhode Island, which was a commercial state and profited greatly by not being subject to the federal impost, came into the Union a year and 3 months after the Constitution had gone into effect, and then only after a threat had been made by Congress that it would be treated as F or a country. The union of the 13 states was then complete. The United States under the Constitution became a nation that is sovereign in all powers necessary for its perpetuity. 7. The relation of the states to the United States. The states are not related to the United States as the township and county are to the state. The state government is not the United States government localized. The United States cannot make laws for the states, as the state can for township and county. The states are independent of the United States in all civil powers consistent with the Republican form of government, except such powers as have been delegated to the United States by the C. Constitution, or are prohibited by the Constitution to the states. The powers of the states are far more numerous than the powers of the United States. The people and their property are subject to a double government, that of the state and that of the United States. The two governments operate together with perfect harmony, whether their jurisdictions cross or are parallel. Of course, we come into contact with the state government vastly more than with the federal government, for the powers of the former are far more numerous than those of the latter. The daily affairs of most of us, except our business with the post office, are subject to state laws. But in case we come under the operation of a United States law, we are likewise bound to comply with its demands. Both governments have the power to tax us for their support and to call on us for their defense. Under the Articles of Confederation, the states alone had such power over the individual and his property. The Constitution of the United States. To the teacher in leading a class through the following chapter, please observe that the questions on the sections call for a close and analytic reading and study of the text of the Constitution. The author, instead of incorporating in his discussions of things needing explanation, the plain and simple statements of the Constitution, intends that such parts should be learned by the pupils from the Constitution itself. He believes it is better for the pupils to learn, for instance, so simple a matter as the qualifications of a senator directly in the Constitution, than in paragraphs written by himself. It is of little use to have the clauses of the Constitution before the eyes of the pupils, in the body of the author's text, if they are not read and studied. The teacher should therefore insist on a thorough study of each set of questions on the sections. The pupils will thereby acquire a much needed intimate knowledge of the Constitution itself and form a habit of thoughtful, analytic reading that will be of value to them in other fields of study. The preamble: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. What it shows. The preamble shows that the government under the Constitution, unlike that under the Articles of Confederation, was to be a union of the 37 people, not a league of the states. The Constitution clothes the United States government with power to act directly upon the people without regard to state lines and without acting on the states. 2. An enumeration of general purposes. The preamble enumerates the general purposes of the Constitution. After the close of the Revolution, the Articles of Confederation had failed to accomplish these purposes, CP 31, and it was therefore natural that they should be enumerated in the preamble, as a reason for the establishment of the Constitution. These general purposes have been of great importance to the courts in interpreting the Constitution, and the whole preamble has been a GI-eat battleground for political parties in the United States. \3. The term Constitution. As used in America, the term Constitution implies a written instrument of government. That of the United States consists of 7 articles and 15 amendments, divided into sections and clauses. England has an unwritten constitution. It does not consist of a single document drawn up at one time. It is the growth of centuries, and consists of charters, bills of rights, acts of parliament, and legal usages and customs.
Only here in what? Old England. Not Europe. It's not talking about Europe. It's telling you England. They kill me with this shit. We're going to finish after this page. Let's go. Come on with the nonsense. Let's get it going.
To an enumeration of general purposes. The preamble, establishment of the Constitution. These general purposes have been of great \3. England has an unwritten constitution. It does not consist of a single document drawn up at one time. It is the growth of centuries, and consists of charters, bills of rights, acts of parliament,
y'all know they ain't been around
and legal
centuries.
usages
Come
and
on.
customs. The United States had to have a written constitution, because the old world forms and principles of government had been abandoned by our fathers, and the new nation was too large and complex to wait for time to develop an unwritten constitution. The United States continued without a written constitution until the Articles of Confederation were adopted in 1781.
Okay, now check this out. If Europe was so great, so grand, so awesome, had all these royalties within them, so on and so forth. Bad Saint said too. She the only one put something. No, I'm lying, because Coach said 1 and 2. Okay, we're gonna start with 1 because Coach said 1 and 2. 1 first. We're gonna do both of them, sis. I'll get to it, Bad Saint. So if the Constitution, right, was I'm sorry, if Europe, that's where I was going. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to pull the page up. If Europe was so great, right? Why is it that they didn't have a constitution, articles of incorporation, trade federation, governance? Why didn't they have any of this shit before they got over here? Why did they have to wait to get here to figure this out? I'm gonna ask this of y'all kinfolks, right? All y'all European, Caucasoid, mestizos, all of you people, right? How come y'all didn't have a governance? How come y'all didn't have royal leniency? How come y'all didn't have any of these things till y'all got here? Why is it that every picture we see of y'all so-called Queen of England from way back yonder, so and forth, she's a picture that's drawn out? How come we can find our kings and queens literally with their crown and stuff on? Like literally, like I just don't understand what makes common sense to people, and they can try to think of something different. I want you to use your head, your common sense. If you know for a fact that you are the best place ever, you've always been here, you've been around for centuries, so on and so forth, why wouldn't any of that stuff initiate before the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s? How come it didn't come? How come it didn't come to after y'all came here and tried to get up? Because after y'all was in slavery for so damn long, y'all blended, and the people decided to use y'all as a scapegoat. Okay, we're gonna use these slaves, these Slavs, these Slavic Caucasoids, these Teutons. We're gonna use them, right? Because we have people that are there covered. So we're going to put them supposedly in the place, but it's actually going to be us. We're going to be the ones in place, because see, we're going to come in with our white skin and act like we're the European, and see the royalties that we're going to steal from them. We're going to put it into this area and say, hey, it came from this continent. Because see, once we create a continent, we good to go. Because see, now we can create many subcontinents. And now once we get everything in order, in about 100 years, we're going to do this. Because remember, they plan everything out 100 years at a time. 100 years, 100 years, 100 years, 100 years. They go by the forefathers, their information, what they have planned and plotted out there. Now when the 100 years get there, they start to work on the next plan. So now they have these people. They have put them in the place, right? In the face. Y'all remember the blackface? They used to show y'all blackface. They was showing y'all that they was black. No, they was literally showing y'all that everything is a facade, is part of their theatrics, right? White face on black face on white face. This is what was going on. We about to get into this embassy document. I want y'all to see, because see, now what they did is create these things after coming here, getting the trade, like I said, settling in, having their Quaker frontiersmen, all these black natives come in, mingling with the tribes, becoming new situated tribes by reserving nations on the reservations, by pioneering and creating homesteads, the same as the reservations. The homestead was a smaller portion of a reservation. These were individuals that were, we don't want to stay on the reservation, so we're going to start doing a homestead so we can get the plots of land over here, but we still got control of the reservations and every damn thing else. So now we're going to blend ourselves in with the people. We're going to marry their wives, start blending ourselves in, taking over the land. We could be the chiefs of their tribe, because once I marry their wife, now I'm the chief. If her father dies, I'm the chief of that tribe. So now we're the rulers. And see, now we could put them in. We could bring these mestizos, the mixed ones. We could bring in the Melungeons as well, and we could blend them in. Once we bring in the Melungeons and blend them in, then we can say that these are the people that empower. We can say they're empowering their place. But see, they are empowering their place, because see, it's still them. It's still the Black natives. But see, y'all think it's the white people or the white tea people or the Caucasoids or the Teutons or the mestizos, but it's actually those good old Black natives. Now let's go. We're finna start reading this right now. And I'm finna come and check with anybody that's come in the chat.
Embassies Overseas, Tuesday, July 13th, 1993. House of Representatives, Legislation, and National Security Subcommittee of the Committee on Government Operations, Washington, D.C. The subcommittee met, pursuant to notice, at 10:05 a.m., in room 2154, Rabum House Office Building, Hahn. Glenn English, acting chairman of the subcommittee, presiding. Members present, Representatives Glenn English and Al McCandless. Subcommittee staff present, Robert J. Coors,
Yes.
Deputy Staff Director, Miranda G. Katsoyanis, Professional Staff Member, Cheryl Macho, Clerk, and Jane Zero. Kalb, Minority Professional Staff. Full Committee staff present, Julian Epstein, Staff Director. Opening statement of Acting Chairman English MR.
Y'all heard that?
English.
Listen, I want y'all to pay attention when I do this reading a lot of times. Y'all need to pay attention to the name. This is why I do a lot of the genealogical books, right? Y'all see, y'all heard Epstein, Julian Epstein. Who are you guys familiar with who the Epstein was? I'm not gonna get into it, but it all plays a part of the same damn thing. Epstein. You guys know who that is? Let's go. I want y'all to really be paying attention.
Conyers is unable to be with us today due to scheduling difficulties. He has long been concerned with today's hearing issues, and wishes to express his apologies to the witnesses with whom he hopes to meet in the future. Today we meet to review long-standing and widespread management problems at U.S. embassies overseas. We will examine key problems that have been cited by the Comptroller General and Department of State as high-risk areas or material weaknesses. They are: the recovery of overseas medical expenses in which the department could be losing up to $1 million a year, the substantial loss of personal property worldwide worth $600 million, contracting and procurement valued at $500 million annually, inadequacy of staffing and training, deficiencies in overseas financial management systems, the failure to enforce overseas housing standards, which results in the increased cost to the government, and continued susceptibility to waste and mismanagement of nearly $10 billion worth of overseas real estate and construction. For over 30 years, the General Accounting Office has reported on numerous management deficiencies at our overseas embassies and consulates. At the subcommittee's request, the GAO has conducted field work in 14 countries and collected data from over 80 overseas posts to review the status of the above-mentioned management weaknesses. Much to my dismay, the GAO's investigation indicates that overseas operations continue to be hampered by ineffectiveness and inefficiencies, at a loss of substantial taxpayer dollars. The State Department's Office of Inspector General has long reported on the problems plaguing our overseas posts, and has offered concrete recommendations on corrective actions that should be taken.
Overseas posts, because what? The United States is in control of all the American embassies, right? Over 188 embassies, right? Who controls that? Let's go. That would control trafficking, foreign affairs. Here this shit go again. That would control the trafficking. That would control the foreign affairs. If you were human trafficking, if you were slave trading, it's the same thing. Slave trading is human trafficking, right? So right now we hear about human trafficking, organ harvesting, sex trafficking of children. We hear about cannibalism with rituals and things of this nature. Y'all don't think that's the same thing? I want y'all to tell me if y'all think it's the same thing or not. Somebody put one in the chat if y'all know that's the same damn thing. If y'all know that when y'all just heard that name, it puts you into the leniency of certain people and what's been going on for quite a few hundred years. Pay attention. Stay woke, y'all. Stay woke, y'all. Hold on. Let me try to go back. It unstopped on me. Don't want me to keep going. I hate
which results in the increased cost. For over 30 years, the General Accounting Office has reported on numerous management deficiencies at our overseas embassies and consulates. At the subcommittee's request, The GAO has conducted field work in 14 countries and collected data from over 80 overseas posts to review the status of the above-mentioned management weaknesses. Much to my dismay, the GAO's investigation indicates that overseas operations continue to be hampered by ineffectiveness and inefficiencies, at a loss of substantial taxpayer dollars. The State Department's Office of Inspector General has long reported on the problems plaguing our overseas posts, and has offered concrete recommendations on corrective actions that should be taken. Today they will highlight their current concerns on overseas operations with particular emphasis on the high-risk areas that persist. Unfortunately, for the past decade, there has been little hope that long-term solutions would be put in place. Finally, we will hear from the State Department on their intentions to pay more attention to identifying and correcting chronic deficiencies in their management of overseas operations. The Clinton administration has signaled early on the desire to focus on management issues across the federal government. Vice President Al Gore's task force on reinventing government has been charged with this responsibility. For too long, mismanagement at the State Department has been tolerated and allowed to flourish. The American people elected President Clinton because they wanted the business as usual attitude of government to stop. We have a clear opportunity to do so, and with fewer dollars available for foreign aid and State Department operations to meet the challenges of a post-Cold War world, we cannot afford the luxury of ignoring such mundane matters as sound management practices. I now recognize the ranking minority member of the subcommittee, the gentleman from California, Al McCandless, for any opening comments he might wish to make. Mr. McCandless. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank our chairman for holding this important hearing in this timely and important area of our present overseas activities and the management problems at our U.S. embassies. It is obvious from the 4 gag reports that some serious problems exist and need to be addressed. With a total of 164 embassies and over 100 consulates scattered around the globe, the task of rooting out these problems is undoubtedly a daunting one for the auditors from the GAO and State Department's Inspector General's shop. However, I applaud the effort of these auditors who know that it is critical to stay on top of these issues, expose the problems, and make sure they are addressed appropriately. Our federal government cannot afford to make excuses for the kinds of losses being incurred at our embassies. $120,000 of missing property from the Mexico City embassy, $45,000 stolen from the embassy in Panama, and $40,000 in unreimbursed medical costs at the embassy in Budapest, to name a few. This is not about excessive spending or extravagant excesses. This is wasted and unaccounted for money because of fundamental flaws in the basics of post functions, management of real estate, office furniture, and medical expenses. It leads me to believe that rather than exceptions, these losses are just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes,
the GAO report before us today represents detailed audits at 14 of.
Yes, sweetheart, because why? War justifies trade. More trading of our resources to these companies that bribe them, that give them extra change, that tell them, hey, I want you to do this because we're trying to build our company up. You know, hey, you got dual what they call it, citizenship here. So, you know, we'll let you come here. If anything happened to your country, just leave and come on over here. Because shit, you done helped us out. You done built us up for far too long. Like, you know, this shit's been happening. This is what they do because they're trying to get their continents built up so they can control and rule something that they never had.
The 164 embassies. Obviously,
the
State Inspector General inspects posts at somewhat higher rates.
I think, let me check.
However, we cannot wait for each individual audit before addressing these systematic problems. The State Department must promptly correct these flawed management systems and hold each embassy strictly accountable for putting them into place as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. English. Thank you, Mr. McCandless. This morning we have Mr. Frank Conahan, Assistant Controller General of the United States. He certainly is no stranger to the subcommittee. He has testified before us on a number of occasions during the past years. Today, Mr. Conahan is accompanied by Lynn
I'm
Moore,
gonna show y'all
Senior
something.
Evaluator with COW's
Let me pull
National
this up for
Security and
y'all.
International Affairs Division. Our next panelist is Mr. John Payne, the Assistant Inspector General for Auditing both at the Department of State and Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. Mr. Payne is going to be accompanied by Mr. John Meenan, the Audit Manager. We are pleased to have you gentlemen with us here today. It is the custom here with this subcommittee and we would like for you to stand and take the oath. Witnesses sworn. Mr. English. Mr. Conahan, we will let you begin your testimony. I might say that without objection, your complete testimony, your written testimony, will be made part of the record. I hope our witnesses today will feel free to summarize that written testimony. Mr. Conahan. Statement of Frank C. Conahan, Assistant Controller General of the United States,
I want y'all to
General Accounting Office,
let me play
accompanied by Conahan. Thank you, Mr. You also mentioned that the subcommittee had asked us about a year or so ago to take a fresh look in a number of areas, and we did that by visiting some 14 embassies and sending a questionnaire to slightly over 100 embassies around the world. We got a fairly good response rate of close to 80% on the questionnaire. So we feel that we have a good current basis for the comments that we will make to you this morning. We will be touching on matters relating, I would like to, of time, these related to lax oversight, inadequate information systems, insufficient maintenance, and poor planning. We reported, I would like to say a few words about each so we can get to your questions as quickly as possible.
Listen.
Last year, we issued a report as part of our high-risk series dealing with the management of overseas property, and in it, we talked about the weaknesses that have been observed over a long period of time. These related to lax oversight, inadequate information systems, insufficient maintenance, and poor planning. We reported that many buildings were in poor condition, were continuing to deteriorate, and that many costly repairs could have been avoided if routine and preventive maintenance had been done.
Man, they take care of their embassy, don't they?
We found these problems continue. 30% of the embassies reported that they do not conduct
all the money
annual
they
facility
spend on
reviews.
this.
I think this is a very important internal control in terms of being on top of what needs to be done in terms of maintenance and in order to prioritize what these posts need to do in that regard. Another continuing problem is that embassies are not fully meeting overseas housing standards.
Overseas housing
standards.
Back,
we issued a report that said quite a few of the housing units overseas were over State Department standards. In 1991, those standards were modified, but our current review shows they are still not in compliance with the modified 1991 standards. They have some ways to go in order to bring that into line. Weaknesses in personal property management have long been a problem at the embassies, as you noted in your opening statements as well. Our review indicates that although some improvements have been made, and I want to note here I think some improvements have been made in this particular area, that there are some things that really need to be corrected. Mr. McCandless noted the $120,000 of property missing in Mexico. That is true. What happened there, I think, which is as important as the missing property, is the fact that the embassy essentially swept that problem under the rug, if you will, for the reason they just could not sort out what had happened there. The records were so bad that there was no way of really finding out who was responsible or why that had occurred. We found property missing during our visit to Russia, both expendable property, which is somewhat understandable since that is usable things that find a way of walking away, but in addition to that, we found non-expendable property, silverware, china, and crystal, missing from the ambassador's residence. You will recall some years back we held a hearing on that very matter right before this committee. It was a great problem then. It continues. As part of the questionnaire, a number of embassies reported that they had not fully implemented state's automated, non-expendable personal property system, which again we think is an essential internal control if we are going to get a handle on it. States worldwide dispersing and cashiering activities are also at high risk for fraud, waste, and abuse. The weaknesses we identified indicate that state has a long way to go. For example, in Mexico, We found problems with supervision of cashiers. We found there were inadequate visitations to the consulate posts in order to determine how well those operations were going. We found, for example, an absence of controls or at least inadequate controls over consulate collections totaling about $15 million annually. Other examples are throughout my statement here. Another financial control weakness is the failure to adequately monitor the status of travel advances and accounts receivable. You will also recall before this subcommittee several years ago we talked about the general problem of not monitoring travel advances, and the State Department at that time had very, very large balances outstanding for a long period of time. You will also recall, Mr. Chairman, that the State Department had created false accounts so as to cover up for their failure to collect these balances. That has been identified by the State Department as a material weakness. They are working on it. They hope to have it cleared up, but it still prevails to some extent.
They are.
You mentioned the failure of the State Department to recover medical payments that were made by the embassies overseas. We talked about that in a report a year or so ago, made recommendations the State Department to get on top of it. I don't think they have done very much.
It still ain't.
I think Mr. Painet's office has done a recent review of it and perhaps will give you some details as to where they stand presently. I would like to say a word about the overall financial management weaknesses over at the Department of State. This has been an area of concern to us for quite some period of time. We worked long and hard to get the CFO legislation enacted. I think that agencies generally are attempting to comply with the CFO legislation.
Really?
I think the State Department is attempting to comply with the CFO legislation, but they have a long way to go. There are deficiencies in their headquarters accounting system, and there are deficiencies in their systems they have for overseas posts. We reported in December on both systems. One thing that struck me in connection with the overseas system is that it really only covers about 55% of the transactions. The remaining transactions overseas are covered by an assortment of non-standard systems the embassies have in place. With that kind of a situation, it is very, very difficult to develop information for purposes of compliance with the CFO legislation, which requires a general ledger and financial statements. They are a long way from that. We have been reporting this for some time. I would like to hear from the State Department on where they stand on that now. You mentioned the weaknesses in contracting and procurement. Here again there has been some movement toward correction in this area. The system that has been put in place where people are certified as contracting officers rather than the systems that they had in the past where people just because they were in the job were contracting officers, I think is an improvement. Here again they have a way to go. They need to provide better training. Though they have certified these individuals as contracting officers, my information is that they still have a long way to go in terms of providing training to those people.
Exactly. And more additional training for what, right? For what they usually do, which is find more ways to siphon money, money launder, create certain wars, create certain trading, create certain events, and bringing in immigrants so they can pay out money through the foreign exchange and be able to trade the money illegally, the fake fiat ass money that they got, right? Let's go. We're finna keep moving.
American embassies, legations, and consulates mean better for AG and business. An argument in pictures and paragraphs. President Taft said 6E/or the National Board of Trade, January 26, 1910 /AT:"E boast ourselves a democratic country. We say that BB there is no place within the gift of the people to which we may not select the most humble inhabitant, providing he be fit to discharge its duty. And yet we have an arrangement which makes it absolutely impossible for anyone but a millionaire to occupy the highest diplom.attic post.
Oh, really?
Now I ask you whether that is consistency, whether it is not the purest kind of demagogy. By demagogy I mean the advancement of an argument which seems to be in favor of democracy, but which, when it actually works out, is in favor of plutocracy. American Embassy Association. E. Clarence Jones, President 505, Fifth Avenue, New York. Frederick Townsend Martin, Vice President. Frank D. Pavey, Secretary Treasurer. Carrot. Fihul Utimziat Geelraji, The Gift of Carrot J /J Uwaldi /year J Carrot. The date show AVS when this volume was taken. To renew this book, copy the call no and give to the librarian. Home use rules. All books subject to recall. Books not used for instruction or research are returnable within 4 weeks. Volumes of periodicals and of pamphlets are held in the library as much as possible. For special purposes they are given out for a limited time. Borrowers should not use their library privileges for the benefit of other persons. Books not needed during recess periods should be returned to the library or arrangements made for their return during borrower's absence, if wanted. Books needed by annery than one person are books of special, do not deface, when Omer Smote is 7. Bertram Kruger, 8. Thomas Darlington, Schwab,
Go past
505, Fifth Avenue, Couture,
get to the
Lawyer, Mason, Sheldon,
let me show
Banker,
the executive commitment.
62, Schwab,
hear these names.
Mason, Heilner, Couture, 7. 11 E. Clarence Jones, Pirksidnil, 7. Bertram Schwab, 15. 505, Fifth Avenue, New York. E. Clarence Jones. President Frederick Townsend Martin, Vice President Frank D. Pavey. Secretary and Treasurer. Executive Committee Henry Cashard, Lawyer, 39 Boulevard Haussmann, Paris. Frederick R. Couture, Lawyer, Couture Brothers, 2 Rector Street, New York. George Cromwell, President Borough of Richmond, 52 Broadway, New York. Bertram Kruger, Treasurer Metropolitan Trust Co., 49 Wall Street, New York. Thomas Darlington, former President Board of Health, 48 West 59th Street, New York. George C. Heilner, Cole, 1 Broadway, New York. E. Clarence Jones, Banker, 100 Broadway, New York. Bradley Martin, J.K., President 19th Ward Bank, 786 Fifth Avenue, New York. Frederick Townsend Martin, Director Metropolitan Trust Co., 49 Wall Street, New York. Alexander T. Mason, Lawyer, 15 William Street, New York. Charles M. Ulrichs, Banker, 40 Exchange Place, New York. Frank D. Pavey, Lawyer, 32 Nassau Street, New York. Charles M.
All the thieves right here in the
Bethlehem
chat.
Steel Co., Hill Broadway, New York. Gustav H. Schwab, North German Lloyd Steamship Co., 9 Broadway, New York. Albert Shaw, Review of Reviews, 13 Astor Place, New York. George R. Sheldon, Banker, 62 Cedar Street, New York. William B. Van Ingen, 58 West 57th Street, New York. William R. Wilcox, President Public Service Commission, 165 Broadway, New York. Organized April 30th, 1909. Articles of Association I. The name of this association is the American Embassy Association.
What is it?
The purpose of the association is to promote and encourage the acquisition by the United States of permanent homes for its ambassadors in foreign capitals. 3. The work of the association shall be under the control of an executive committee which shall have power to increase and fill all vacancies in its membership. Elect all officers of the association, establish committees in other cities of the United States and foreign countries, and do all acts and things in its judgment necessary and proper to promote the object of the association. For any person may become a member of the association by invitation of the executive committee. No member shall be required to pay an entrance fee or annual dues, but any member may make a voluntary contribution to the work of the association. No member shall be liable for any expenses beyond the amount of his voluntary contribution. The executive committee may invite any former ambassador of the United States or other person of distinction to become an honorary member of the association. National Advisory Committee M.B. Welborage, President First National Bank Anniston, Alla W.P.G. Harding, President First National Bank Birmingham, Alla William Gray, President Tallapoosa County Bank de Davule, Alla George Legrave Comer, Attorney Eufaula, Alla J.D. Dunlap, Woodliff Dunlap Furniture Co. Gadsden, Alla S.J. Mayhew, President Huntsville Bank and Trust Co. Huntsville, Alla Albert P. Bush, T.G. Bush Grocery Co. Mobile, Alla W.K.P. Wilson, WKP Wilson and Son, Real Estate Mobile, Alla Fred S. Ball and Samford, Attorneys Montgomery, Alla F.S. Alston, VP. City National Bank Tuscaloosa, Alla Frederick E. Fuller, Attorney Nome, A. Jaska Bracy Curtis, Cashier First National Bank Nogales, Arizona. E.J. Bennett, President Valley Bank Phoenix, Arizona. Harry Brizay Drug Co. Prescott, Arizona. B.M. Jacobs, President Arizona National Bank Tucson, Arizona. J.B. McCaleb, Attorney Batesville, Art J. Fulbright, VP. Fayetteville Commercial League. Fayetteville, Art W. J. Eccles, President Merchants National Bank Fort Smith, Art E. C. Horner, President Bank of Helena, Ark C. B. Foster, Cashier Hempstead County Bank Hope, Ark H. L. Remmel, President Board of Trade Little Rock, Ark. Jacob Trieber, United States Judge Little Rock, Ark H. R. Turner, Turner Bedding Factory Pine Bluff. Ark W. R. Grimm, President Texarkana National Bank Texarkana, Ark. John E. Raker, Judge Superior Court Alturas, Cal JLBB, Physician
I told
Anaheim,
you.
Cal CC
Y'all
Custer,
gonna pay attention to
President
this crew.
Berkeley Chamber of Commerce Berkeley, Cal WC.
Y'all hear it.
President Corona Hardware and Implement Co. Corona, Cal William Pomtag, President Farmers and Merchants Bank. Hollister, Cal W.H. Booth, President Association.
Oh no, I gotta pause this. Come on, bro. I know you with me now. Come on. Let me remind you. I know they be trying to throw shit out y'all head. Remember I told you guys about the Bretton Woods Conference, right? That was the renewal of setting it all up. The Bretton Woods Conference, when they created the IMF office for the foreign money to start interchanging because they had created the fiat system with the new fiat for the Federal Reserve. So now they put everything into trust. So now they can start stealing out of your money easily. Y'all don't remember we went over that? Y'all remember we went over that? But I'm sorry, y'all got to pay attention. If you missed that live, you need to find it. I don't even remember which one it was. But let's go. I want y'all to hear these damn names. I ain't gonna even go through all of them, but I'm gonna go through a few more just so you guys can see, because I want to move on through this introduction. I want to get down here to quite a few. Rockwell family. Like, come on, this shit crazy.
Commander Pacific Coast. Los Angeles. Cal CB.
Yeah, that part, bro.
Commonwealth Company Los Angeles. Cal F. Wickens.
Yeah.
Secretary Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Cal Charles Butters. Capitalist Oakland. Cal John Earl Jardine, VP. WMR Statsco, Bankers Pasadena, Cal James M. Allen, Attorney San Francisco, Cal. William L. Gerstle, President Chamber of Commerce. San Francisco, Cal James Rolfe, Jr., Hind, Rolfe & Co., Shipping San Francisco, Cal W. Miller Graham, Capitalist Santa Barbara, Cal. S.A. Palmer.
Oh, baby, it's a few things. You got to get up on it, boo.
Cal James
Take time. Appreciate your support.
Santa Rosa.
Welcome. Much love.
President David C. Bell Investment Co. Santa Clara. Cal M.F. Palmer. Cashier Commercial National Bank Upland. Cal C. E. Coulihan. Commission Merchant Boulder, Colorado. Thus J. Fisher. President Chamber of Commerce Colorado Springs, Colorado. Joseph A. Thatcher. President Denver National Bank Denver, Colorado. F.D. Cadlin, Bell, Cadlin and Blake, Attorneys Montrose, Colorado. Willis F. Hobbs, President Manufacturers Association. Bridgeport, Con. Ferdinand Gildersleeve, President First National Bank, Gildersleeve, Con. Edward Mal, President Businessmen's Association Hartford, Con. P. Leroy Harwood, Treasurer Mariners Savings Bank.
Go on over there and get that entertainment, y'all. I'll catch up later.
S.S. Green, President First National Bank, New Milford. Con. John S. Seymour, Seymour and Meagrath, Attorneys, Norwalk. Con. George Pratt Ingersoll, Attorney Richfield. Con. C. Tracy Brothers Co., Contractors Waterbury. Con. George A. Sanford, Secretary Businessmen's Association. Winstead, Con. T.C. DuPont, Pres. E.I. DuPont and Amours Pwd. Co. Wilmington, Del Henry F. Blount, VP. American Security and Trust Co. Washington,
Now
DC
take
Scott
notes.
Bone,
Take notes.
Washington Herald, Washington, DC JD Baker, VP. Baker and Holmes Co., WHSLE Grok, Jacksonville, FLALA Wilson, President Wilson and Tumor Fertilizer Co.,
who?
Jacksonville, FLARM, Gary and Company, Merchants Pensacola,
Damn, I want to
FLA.
fast forward. I want y'all to hear these.
WK
I
Hire,
might have to go
Junior,
past y'all.
President First National Bank Pensacola, FLAWC Richardson, Physician Tampa, FLAWE Cherry, City Drug Co. Abbeville, GAER, Hodgson, Jr., President Empire State Chemical Co. Athens, GAWH Johnson, U.S. Marshall Atlanta.
There's too many names, y'all. It's too many pages. I am, hold on. We're going to start here at the forward so y'all can get an idea of what's going on because the book is 200 pages.
Forward is a democratic movement.
Hold on.
The idea existing in some quarters that this association advocates the purchase of palaces abroad is erroneous. It opposes either the rental or ownership
the only ones
of
that
palaces.
have authority, sis.
It stands purely for the acquisition by our government.
Please, y'all, hit my private. Hit me with a message saying private so y'all can get in the group. Let's go.
Basader can maintain on his pay, and in which all ambassadors must reside, whether worth millions or dependent on their salaries. We believe that all ambassadors should look alike. This will help the poor man. Will tend to restrict the extravagances.
They should look
of the rich.
alike?
And
all ambassadors should look alike. We believe that all ambassadors should look alike. We believe that all ambassadors should look alike. Why? Because this will help the poor man and will tend to restrict the extravagances of the rich and will create a standard of appearances that will be credible to the nation. Do y'all hear this shit? I want to rewind this because I know I was chatting a bit. Let me start this over actually for you guys.
Forward is a democratic movement. The idea existing in some quarters that this association advocates the purchase of palaces abroad is erroneous. It opposes either the rental or ownership of palaces. It stands purely for the acquisition by our government of suitable buildings that will combine the office and the residence that an ambassador can maintain on his pay, and in which all ambassadors must reside, whether worth millions or dependent on their salaries. We believe that all ambassadors should look alike. This will help the poor man, will tend to restrict the extravagances of the rich, and will create a standard of appearances that will be creditable to the nation. The experiences of this association show that in democratic sections of this country the sentiment in favor of this is very strong. It is recognized as democratic doctrine, and both William Jennings Bryan and Samuel Gompers have made public addresses to assist our cause. We believe it is undemocratic, and that it also reflects on the dignity of the nation, for one ambassador to live in a palace and for his successor to live in a flat. We believe that embassies creditable to our nation and strictly American in design can be acquired at an average of not over $300,000 each, a total of only $3 million for all the countries to which we send an ambassador, and that they will enhance in value. As we appropriate annually over $200 million in making preparations to keep on a hostile footing with other nations, we can well afford to expend $3 million to promote friendship with them. We conceive an ambassador's duty to be the cultivation of friendship among the people of the country to which he is accredited, so that he may be prepared to speedily smooth over any rough places, thereby averting possible war, and, through being on friendly terms with the government and the people, get everything possible in the way of commercial advantages for our country. We do not believe that it is any part of his duty to create a snobbish court circle by entertaining certain traveling Americans. This may aid him, but it brings no benefit to the people of our country. It butters no commercial parsnips. His duty toward Americans abroad lies in throwing the arm of the government around them and protecting them whenever they are in trouble. We believe that the president should not be limited in his choice of ambassadors for important posts to men of great wealth, and, to prove that he is, we quote from President Taft's speech of January 26, 1910, before the National Board of Trade, at Washington, when he said, "We boast ourselves a democratic country. We say that there is no place within the gift of the people to which we may not select the most humble inhabitant, providing he be fit to discharge its duty. And yet we have an arrangement which makes it absolutely impossible for anybody but a millionaire to occupy the highest diplomatic post. Now I ask you whether that is consistency, whether it is not the purest kind of demagogy. By demagogy I mean the advancement of an argument which seems to be in favor of democracy, but which, when it actually works out, is in favor of plutocracy. Our association believes that our countrymen would point with pride to a place in which they feel they have citizens' rights, and where they may come and go with the same freedom as that existing at the White House at Washington.
Y'all hear this?
So long as our representatives abroad are compelled to expend large sums from their private fortunes, just so long will our citizens feel that their rights in such residences are uncertain, and that such expenditures on the part of our representatives tends to give them too much independence towards their compatriots and thereby renders them less useful to American citizens. We believe that no representative of our government abroad should be called upon to make expenditures from his private fortune, or that it should be necessary for him to have one in order to enable him to accept the appointment and to maintain our dignity in foreign countries. Refusal to provide residences for our representatives precludes the nation from obtaining the services of many eminent citizens. The American democratic spirit and the American national pride demand that such a condition of affairs be terminated. The American Embassy Association appeals to this democratic spirit and national pride to secure action by Congress to favor the acquisition by the United States of American embassies in foreign countries. American government are at Bangkok, Constantinople, Pekin, and Tokyo. The combined cost to the U.S. government has been probably not over $250,000. See footnotes.
Y'all hear that?
If we are to increase our foreign bus mess and prestige as we can and should, it is evident that to compete successfully with other nations, we must lose no time in imitating them. Diplomatic Building, Bangkok, Siam Diplomatic Building, Pekin, China, Bangkok, Siam, presented by King of Siam in 1884, subject to annual ground rent of $84. Reported in 1889 by Jacob S. Child, American minister, as erect, dangerous for occupation,
I ain't gonna go through all
shaking in
this.
strong
I'm gonna fast forward.
In 1900, reported a new building creditable. Our only ambassadorial is a creditable and reported as being American government. If we are to increase our foreign business and prestige as we can and should, American reported as being unsuitable, undignified, and not calculated to give us standing necessary in Japan, and subject to much criticism that we should own such a poor building at so important a place. Tokyo, the capital of Japan, has a population of about 2 million. American government are at Amoy, Seoul, Tahiti, Tangier, and Yokohama, entirely acquired by gift, and are of nominal value, as shown by the footnotes. The combined cost to this government has probably been not over $20,000. If we are to increase our foreign business and prestige as we can and should, it is evident that to compete successfully with other nations we must lose no time in imitating them. Consular Building, Amoy, China. Consular Building, Soit, Korea. Amoy, China, May 14, 1871. The Chinese government granted the land to the American consul, a Mr. Legendre, condition that a hospital for sick and disabled seamen should be erected.
A hospital, here it goes.
Mr. Legendre leased the building to a Mr. Manson, who established a hospital. In 1891 the American consul took possession of the ground because conditions were not being fulfilled. In 1893 the consulate was moved into the building, since which time the government has paid an annual ground rent of $25.50. The building, according to the picture, looks but was partially. The building is subject
to Morocco. Here go y'all Morocco. I want y'all to hear y'all Morocco. I want y'all to hear y'all Morocco. This is for you good old Moors.
A substantial concrete building. It is Tangier, Morocco. Photographs unsatisfactory as streets too narrow to permit of being taken differently. The Sultan of Morocco granted this property to John Maloney, American consul from 1820 to 1830. He, deeming it his personal property, sold one half, and in 1841, one of his successors, Mr. Carr, sold another part to Shariki Esuri, whose heirs claimed it. QN May 24, 1891, Consul Matthews obtained from the Pasha of the province a title showing the property to be transferred to the United States. The cost of obtaining title was about $65. As a piece of government property, it does not reflect
That ain't
credit
nothing to
upon
pay,
us.
huh?
Tangier has a population of about 30,000. Consular building, Tangier,
This shit crazy.
Morocco Consular building, Tahiti, Society Islands Consular building, Yokohama, Japan. Tahiti, Society Islands. French. In 1832, Queen Pomare granted ground for an American consulate.
Everybody need us.
In
Everybody need us.
1848 by the
Let's
French
fast forward
governor.
this. Let's move along.
The building was later the Yokohama is the buildings at Washington. 12, 14, 16 reported salaries of European ambassadors. 13 address of E. Clarence Jones. 15,
y'all see him?
17,
y'all see him?
19,
ain't a dark skin in there, but I thought it was foreign.
25,
hey, who is these
29,
people?
31
who are they?
buildings at Vienna, Austria. 18, 20 buildings at Brussels,
listen,
Belgium. 20,
listen to the buildings. We ain't gonna listen to all, but listen.
Amoy, China. 24, 26 buildings at Entong, China. 26 buildings at Canton,
look at them.
China. 26, 28 buildings at Harbin, China. 28 buildings at Hong Kong, China. 28 buildings at Mukwang, China. 30 buildings at Shanghai, China. 30, 32, 34 address of Frederick Townsend Martin. 33, 35 buildings at Swato, China. 36 buildings at Tianjin, China. 36, 38, 40 report of the conditions of American embassies and legations in Europe. 37, 39
in Europe.
41,
37. Well, damn. Why would
45,
Europe? Hold on.
47.
I thought this was all created in
51.
Europe. Why would Europe have to have so many buildings? Can y'all tell me that? Can y'all tell me why Europe would have to have so many buildings to help them with foreign affairs and building if they were the great kingdom of royals and stuff like that? So, can somebody like in the chat, if y'all know, just let me know. Let me know.
Buildings at Barranquilla, Colombia. 40 buildings at Boma, Congo. 40 buildings at Copenhagen, Denmark. 42, 44 buildings at Bordeaux, France. 44, 46, 48 buildings at Paris, France. 48, 50 buildings at Rouen, France. 52 buildings at Algeria, Algiers. 52 buildings at Tamatave, Madagascar. 52, 54 speeches in Congress. 53, 55, 57, 59, 61, 63, 65. Buildings at Berlin, Germany. 54, 56 buildings at Bremen, Germany. 56, 58, 60 buildings at Breslau, Germany. 60 buildings at Hamburg, Germany. 60, 62 buildings at Magdeburg, Germany. 62 buildings at Mannheim, Germany. 62, 64 buildings at Nuremberg, Germany. 64 buildings at Munich, Bavaria. 64, 66 buildings at Appia, Samoa. 66 buildings at London, England. 66, 68, 70 what prominent men say. 0.67,
oh, they talking about good old Canada,
71, 73, 75, 77, 79, 81, 83 buildings at Ottawa, Canada. 70 buildings at Aden, Arabia. 70, 72 buildings at Georgetown, Guyana. 72, 74 buildings at Cape Town, South Africa. 74 buildings at Johannesburg, South Africa. 74 buildings at Singapore, Straits Settlement. 76 buildings at Hobart, Tasmania. 76 buildings at Athens, Greece. 76, 78, 80 buildings at Guatemala City, Guatemala. 80 buildings at Port-au-Prince, Haiti. 82 buildings at Amsterdam, Holland. 82 buildings at The Hague, Holland. 82, 84, 86 resolutions of chambers of commerce and other carrot organizations. 85, 87, 89, 91, 93, 95, 97, 99, 101, 103, 105, 107, 109, 111,
All right, y'all see. Let's go past these buildings. I'm sorry, I was pulling something else
The
up.
governments of Austria, France, Germany, England, Petersburg, British legation, Chinese legation, Washington.
All right.
Reported salaries of European ambassadors. Why England?
This how they get their money.
$45,000 at Berlin. $40,000 at St. Petersburg.
Here you go.
$39,000 at Rome. $35,000 at Vienna. $40,000. Government owns residences generally. By Germany, at Paris, $30,000, at London, $37,500, at St. Petersburg, $37,500, at Rome, $25,000, at Vienna, $30,000. Government owns residences in all cases. By France, at Berlin, $28,000, at London, $40,000, at Rome, $24,000, at St. Petersburg, $40,000, at Vienna, $35,000. Owns residences at many places. By Austria, at Berlin, $31,000, at Paris, $35,000, at London, $45,000, at Rome, $33,000, at St. Petersburg, $35,000. Owns residences at many places. By Italy, at Vienna, $22,000.
Residences,
London,
that housing.
$22,000. Berlin, $22,000. St. Petersburg, $22,000. Paris, $23,000. Where the residence is not owned, the ambassador receives an allowance to cover rent. By Russia, at Berlin,
now, let me just step in right here so I can tell you guys about this. Now, how many times have I told y'all that all the townships hold your allowance, right? You have a trust set up with your registration through the state. So all of the accounts are set up and held through the townships, through the county, particular county. They have it stipend certain ways where it's like it's either in the county, it's in the township, blah, blah, blah. So when you have your control and take the fiduciary responsibility from these idiots that are formally running you by having you run everywhere, rip and run with these applications and using and abusing you, while you're continuing to do that, right? What they're doing is it's allowing them to keep the funding and use it for their purposes. You're not being used to, get the funding that's created for you. Keep that in mind.
$1,000 at Paris, $40,000 at Vienna, $40,000 at Rome, $32,000. Government owns residences and pays for maintenance. In Vienna, official residences are owned by France, Italy, Germany, England, and Russia. In Paris by Austria, Germany, England, Russia, Sweden, Belgium, and Greece. In Berlin by Austria, France, England, and Russia. In St. Petersburg by Austria, France, and Germany. In London, official residences are either owned or held by leaseholds, running up to 999 years, by Austria, France, Germany, Italy, Russia, Spain, Japan, China, and Turkey. The governments of Austria, France, Germany, England, Italy, and Russia have both summer and winter residences at Constantinople. What we pay, the United States owns its official residences only at Constantinople, Pekin, Tokyo, Bangkok, Seoul, Tangier, Tahiti, Amoy, and Yokohama. In addition to salaries and other allowances, all governments except the United States pay their ambassadors a substantial pension upon retirement. This enables them to live up to their salaries and to spend what they received during their active career. The pensions of foreign ambassadors and ministers in many cases are about as large as the salaries paid by the government of the United States. The following list shows the salaries allowed by the United States to ambassadors and ministers, ambassadors extraordinary and plenipotentiary to France, Germany, Great Britain, Mexico, Russia, Turkey, Japan, Brazil, Italy, and Austria-Hungary, $17,500 each, without any allowance. Envoys extraordinary and ministers plenipotentiary to the Argentine Republic, China, Cuba, Belgium, and Spain, $12,000 each, Chile, Colombia, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, Panama, Peru and Venezuela, $10,000 each, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Salvador, $10,000, Guatemala and Honduras, $10,000, Denmark, Morocco, Paraguay, and Uruguay, Portugal, Romania and Serbia, Sweden, and Norway, and Switzerland, $7,500 each, Greece and Montenegro and diplomatic agent in Bulgaria, $7,500, Bolivia, Ecuador, Haiti, Korea, Persia, and Siam, $7,500 each, Minister Resident and Consul General to Liberia, $5,000, Agent and Consul General at Cairo, $5,000, Charges d'affaires at interim and diplomatic officers abroad $3,500. Costa Rican Legation Washington, DCJ. Or Danish, right, and Swedish, left, Legation Ecuadorian T, F. Jarana Embassy German Embassy Ecuadorian Legation Haitian Legation I ********************. Address of E. Clarence Jones President of the American Embassy Association, before commercial and civic organizations and the Congressional Committee on Foreign Affairs. I beg to thank you for the privilege you have extended to the American Embassy Association in giving us the opportunity of explaining to you the aims and expectations of our association.
You gotta do the estate planning with
Our
me,
mission
sis.
here is to enlist your aid in impressing upon Congress the necessity and importance of improving the condition of our diplomatic service by establishing homes for ambassadors. Not long ago, a number of us met and discussed this subject, in which we were all deeply interested and decided to create an organization to promote and encourage the acquisition by the United States of permanent homes for its ambassadors in foreign capitals, thereby enabling any man of sufficient mental capacity, no matter how small his means, to accept such an appointment, which many are now unable to do on account of the small allowance made by our government. The result of that meeting was the formation of the American Embassy Association, which honored me by electing me its president. Our association is now engaged in the organization of committees in all the large commercial centers of the United States. It is our expectation that we shall enroll in these organizations the leading citizens of each state, and that when the organizations are perfected, they will have sufficient influence to ensure the enactment by Congress of some proper measure providing a moderate annual appropriation by the government for the purpose of acquiring permanent homes for our ambassadors in foreign capitals. We are making a campaign of education. We have had representatives traveling in Europe collecting data and photographs and making comparisons between the allowances made to our representatives and those of other nations in order to enable us to explain the present situation. Our association will have no social complexion. It is purely a businessmen's organization, and, from the encouragement we are daily receiving, we are confident of success. From present indications, we hope to have a membership of 100,000 sympathizers within a year, and these properly organized will give the movement a momentum and importance that Congress should notice. Our association believes that for not over $3 million our government can acquire suitable permanent houses, preferably of characteristic American architecture, for our ambassadors in the various foreign capitals.
What kind of
architecture?
Such investments
will enhance in value. The price of our association believes that for not over $3 million our government can acquire suitable permanent houses, preferably of characteristic American architecture, for our ambassadors in the various foreign capitals, and that such investments will enhance in value. The price of war: we appropriate about $200 million annually for preparations for war, and almost an equal amount to pay for past wars. We surely should expend a small sum for the purpose of cultivating and maintaining friendly relations with foreign countries. The Honorable Joseph H. Cho tells a story of his being approached one dark, wet, winter night on one of the lonely thoroughfares of London by a policeman. Japanese Embassy, Russian Embassy, Peruvian Legation, Washington, D.C. Mexican Embassy, Spanish Legation 16, Portuguese Legation, Netherlands Legation, Turkish Embassy. "I say, old chap," called the officer, "what are you doing walking about in this beastly weather? Better go home." "I have no home," replied Mr. Choate. "I am the American ambassador." We believe that our government should own a residence in every country to which it sends an ambassador, and that our citizens would point with pride to a place to which they may go feeling that they have citizens' rights therein, an embassy building that will favorably compare with those of other nations. So long as our representatives abroad are compelled to expend annually large sums from their private fortunes, just so long our citizens feel that their rights in such places are uncertain,
where they get
such
fortunes that are
expenditure on the
private
part
from.
of the ambassador tends to give him too much independence towards his compatriots and thereby renders him less useful to American citizens. We believe that no representative of our government abroad should be called upon to make expenditures from his private fortune, or that it should be necessary for him to have one in order to be enabled to accept the appointment and to maintain the dignity of our government in foreign countries. We believe that all ambassadors, no matter what their means, should reside in the same permanent home, which the government should supply, where our citizens may feel at liberty to come and go with the same freedom as that existing at the White House at Washington. While by its articles of association
is nothing but an embassy,
limited to
right?
embassies,
it's an embassy
there is
itself.
no good reason why the work of the association should not be extended to legations and consulates. Before any of our representatives began our tour of the principal cities of the country, we were told that we would find opposition in certain sections. We have now visited most of the principal cities of the United States. Our appearance has always been under the auspices of the leading local commercial organizations.
On the auspices
of,
which we know is a lie.
And we have not found the opposition yet. The press and the people wherever we have gone have been enthusiastic, and as the result of our various meetings there have been sent to Congress resolutions of endorsement from business organizations having probably 50,000 members. The seal of democracy. Ours is a democratic idea. Speaking from the same platform, Samuel Gompers, president of the American Federation of Labor, having about 1.5 million members, has advocated our ideas much more earnestly than I could myself, and has offered, whenever the opportunity presented, to do whatever he could for us. William Jennings Bryan at one of our meetings recently made a stirring address in which he recited that on his return from his trip around the world, as soon as he landed in New York, he went to Washington and appeared before certain committees of Congress in advocacy of this idea, he having seen in his world's tour the desirability of it. From what better democratic sources than these can we show that it is not alone the wealthy and traveled who agree with us? The system as it exists today is plutocratic, not democratic, and is inconsistent with our democratic form of government. British Embassy, Verona, Austria. German Embassy, VL Austria. Japanese Embassy, Vienna, Austria. 18 French Embassy, Vicuna, Austria. Italian Embassy. We have been so busily engaged with the stupendous problems at home that we have lost sight of these questions, which affect to a large extent the result of our labors. Our attention has been almost entirely directed to internal affairs, and we have neglected doing that which would better secure for us the goodwill of foreign countries as an adjunct to the extension of our commerce. Since that war which threw us into the maelstrom of international politics and by which we became a world power, these questions have slowly been forced upon us, and we now see the great markets that are open for the extension of our manufactured articles, and we should make every effort to secure them before it is too late. What ambassadors endure? The following story has been denied, but it is true nevertheless. A few years ago, a representative American citizen was objected to by the ruler of the country to which our government was sending him, on the ground that he had not sufficient means. This gentleman received the appointment, and in point of tact, ability, and conscientiousness he stands today as one of the brilliant leaders of the American diplomacy. The discussion occasioned by his appointment in Washington and in the foreign capital where he now lives illustrates the disadvantage to which, under the present system, men of small means are subjected. The consummation of our ideas will establish a standard of appearances. Better embassies mean better foreign business. The following is from the New York Times of December 19th, 1909, Rome, December 9. A long sigh of content escaped from the Americans in the Eternal City when the news spread that Ambassador Leishman was actually in the city to stop for the winter. He has taken up his quarters in the Hotel Excelsior, and is still, in spite of all rumors that he has taken the Rudnai Villa, feverishly house hunting and, as he has seen everything the Eternal City has to offer and has found nothing, it is now almost certain that he will stop where he is until the spring, when something new may turn up. All the other ambassadors are commiserating him with the smug feeling that their governments look after them better than that. The importance of a place in which to keep valuable records, such as exist in every embassy office, is illustrated by an incident that occurred a few years ago. Some little time elapsed between the departure of our minister from Athens, who had resigned, and the arrival of his successor. During this interim there was no office of any kind, the lease of the building had expired, and all the records and dispatches had been thrown into the street, but were recovered by the principal of the American school at Athens, who stored them away in the loft of the school building until the succeeding minister arrived. In the last decade, extraordinary changes have been effected in the relations of the United States with foreign governments, and the question of housing our ambassadors in a manner consistent with our position as a world power has become urgent. The conditions of life in the principal capitals of Europe have changed so within the past 25 years that no opinion on this question based on the condition existing in the earlier periods of our history as a nation are justified by the facts of today. F caret F caret S caret 2 MT1 IIGJ asterisk asterisk caret 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 V Papal Embassy, Vienna, Austria Austrian Legation, Brussels, Belgium Russian ML Jassy, Vienna, Austria Turkish Embassy, Vienna, Austria British Legation, Brussels, Belgium. These changes both in the conditions of youth in foreign capitals and in our relation with foreign governments have been so rapid that they have not given time for the gradual development of the idea. The necessity for action has entirely outrun public opinion upon this subject. An English ambassador receives $40,000 per year, together with his house and a liberal allowance for entertaining expenses, while an American ambassador receives only $17,500 a year and no allowances. Even in early days, our diplomatic representatives abroad were paid $12,000. Yep. Yet Franklin, Jefferson, and Adams repeatedly complained of the difficulty of paying their expenses with this allowance.
Man, I want to get to
some idea may be had then of the present inconvenience of our ambassadors when it is remembered that the cost of living has probably quadrupled and their salaries have increased less than 1/3. Some men of small means have attempted to keep up establishments by drawing on the money they had saved. General Noyes, minister to France under President Harrison, was one of them, and though recognized as a man of modest requirements, he sacrificed $150,000, his entire fortune, to supply the difference between his remuneration from the government and the actual, essential expenses of the post. Congressman Longworth, telling of this incident, describes pathetically an old lady of aristocratic mien, who can be seen every day in the suburbs of Cincinnati dutifully tending her little truck garden, the products of which she sells for her support. This lady is the widow of General Noyes. Commercial parsnips, as everyone knows, many a business deal is transacted over the dinner table. Postprandial conversation seems to be conducive to easy negotiation. The drummer considers it a victory won when he can get his prospective customer to dine with him, and it's a poor salesman who economizes on the menu. In the same way, as Mark Twain pointed out, our ministers and ambassadors must, for commercial reasons, if for no other, be in a position to entertain socially the men with whom they do business.
But they do.
A foreign representative, to be valuable to his country, must be on good terms with the officials at the capital and with the rest of the influential folk. He must mingle with this society. He cannot sit at home. It is not business. It butters no commercial parsnips. The ham and the lemonade sort of diet, which many of our representatives have been forced to hand out at their official entertainments, has caused incalculable loss to the commercial influence of this nation. A proper ambassadorial residence should make provisions in the same building for the ambassador's business office, with vaults for the preservation of valuable records.
Preservation of valuable
Up
records.
To a short time ago, our headquarters at Constantinople were located badly.
Valuable records. Most of the valuable records that have not been changed or altered, they have in these other places. You see where it says preservation of the valuable records. If you go to the Spanish archive, if you go to Spain, you can get all kind of accurate records. If you go to France, you can go to their Library of Congress. You can get everything from that they have outside of here. Everybody can get it if they search the information, but you can't.
The Turkish government is said to have refused to assume the responsibility of protecting the legation unless it was moved to a safer part of the city. We then purchased our present and only embassy in Europe for $150,000.
Y'all, one and only embassy in Europe for $150,000. But wait a minute, if y'all were the controllers or the rulers, like why would y'all just have one little place in the embassy in Europe? And you know, when you guys are so much in control and you know everything's y'all and you know so on and so forth, how come y'all only get a place in the embassy after it's created to try and squeeze y'all in? Why is that? That's right. That's right. They got to act like they part of you. Oh, yeah. Oh, Clinton pulled out hot sauce one time. Come on. They be using all types of shenanigans, y'all. Let's go. I'm about to show y'all. I want y'all to have a clear understanding of what the embassy is, right? I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but I'm going to show you the site. This is all. Wait, I got to show y'all two things, actually. Let me pull this other one up while I'm showing you guys this. Now, check this out. This is official list of all of the U.S. Embassy, the United States government, the U.S. Embassy. Wait a minute, why is it the U.S. Embassy? Because they're in control of it. Because of what? The UN is all orchestrated under the United States, so it's all the U.S. You might as well say the United States UN, the United States Embassy. All of this. Look. Websites. This website shows all of them. Look, all the countries. This is all of them. Look right here. Right here, going down the line. Let's go down the line. Check it out real quick. Oh, it's gonna make me highlight. I don't want to do that. Look. These are all the embassies. Look, y'all see them? Look, I just want y'all to see them real quick. I'm gonna browse through it. It's about 188 of them now. It was 100 when this document was presented. It was like 140 something, I think, or 150 something. Look, all of these. Look. Go back up one more time so y'all. Anybody that didn't see any of them, look. Let's see. Y'all see? See? All of them. All of these. Part of the United States Embassy. All in coscience. But how could you have wars and all these things if y'all go through the embassy and it's all controlled and contained there and money and funds have coming out of the United States consistently to take care of these people? How could they? Damn, how could they? United States Embassy is so strange, huh? Let's check this one out. I want y'all to see this one as well. Because you know how I tell you guys that, you know, they have to have the mission and all these different things. They have to have the church, you know, so on and so forth. They have to have this trinity of nativity, right? Let me see. Check this out. Now, y'all wouldn't think the embassy had anything to do with, you know, anything else that's going on. This is actually the World Embassy International Christian Center. They have a International Christian Center. This is the World Embassy International Christian Center. Christian Embassy, basically. We can put the embassy. This is what they have. It never ended. They just enhanced it and you know, just made their best little, you know. But yeah, check them out. Here they go. So now we have the we have here, guys, the World Embassy International Christian Center, the International Christian Center. Who on the face of that? Look at that. Look at his face. Ooh, look like some good old Jesuits. Look like some good old Jesuits, some good old Black natives right here at the head of that organization, huh? Would you believe that? Oh, you should believe it after everything we've been reading. But yeah, check it out. Look, want a better life? First time visiting, connect. Look, you can get all kind of information. Just come to the site. They'll help you out. If you're a Christian and you want to go to another country, so on and so forth, you can join them on social media, get their service time. They got a service that a couple of times a month. This is their organization right here in Adamant Spring, Florida. The International Embassy Christian Organization. Y'all see this? Look at them. Look at these good old Embassy Online. They teaching to they preaching to the world. They got the whole control of the Embassy of Christianity because they are preaching to the world, not just to the Americas, but to the world, the indoctrination plan that they have set up. Look. Want a better life? Let's read more. Y'all interested? Let me show you. These people. We're going to get out of here shortly, guys. I wanted to try and get a couple more books in. I'm going to try to do at least one more. Hold on. A better way. You want a better way? Come on through. Check it out. Look, what's the first thing you see? Look, our book. This is our history book, y'all. And they transpired it and used everything from inside, outside. But that's a whole nother story. Want a better life? Have you ever felt like there is more in life that you could be experiencing? Do you feel like you need a life of your own? If so, we have just the right place and remedy for you in the Bible. Jesus said that he came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. The great benefit to him saying this is that if you want a better life, you want to know it now. All you have to do is believe that he is talking directly to you. All you have to do is believe, be alive, that he is talking directly to you. The moment that you take what he said personally, your better life begins. This is the Christianizing. Listen, this is the Christianizing. Salvation. Oh my gosh, salvation. What does salvation mean? Salvation means you're saved from what? A life of destitute, starvation, just death, all types of diseases because no clean water, feces around, all these things. That's the salvation that you need. Because see, once you get salvation and you get Christianized, right? Now you can go through the embassy and you can get an international passport and you can be transferred over to the Americas to do what? Maybe even possibly just start working for them. Didn't they tell us that a minute ago, right? Okay, let me get this other book pulled up real quick for y'all. I want y'all to see at least this other one before we get out of here, and we're gonna have to probably do it 4 because it's like 4 more books I really wanted to show y'all, and I know I can never get through this as quickly as I'd like to in my mind. It's like, okay, go over this, and that, but shit, it ain't that easy. Because right now I want to show you guys a little bit about the American Review, right? The American Review shows you all of these people and their actions. We're going to browse through it. I don't want to do a bunch of reading because this got a lot of reading. Look at them, the progress of the world. I might read a little bit. Should I let it read? I'm gonna let it read this first page. We're not gonna get into a few pages, guys. But yeah, let's try to start right here.
The American Review of Reviews for XE New York, June 1911. The progress of the world. Reciprocity. Copyright. The assumption that it would not be possible for the United Ottawa States Congress to dispose of the 5 reciprocity agreement before the middle of July.
What it is.
The Canadian Parliament, on May 19th. Adjourned for 2 months.
Exactly what it is. Love it.
Sir Wilfrid Laurier and the parliamentary delegation, which includes Sir Frederick Borden, Minister of Militia, and Honorable
Minister
Louis
of Militia,
Minister of Marine and Fisheries,
Marine
for London
the
on
Minister
May
of Marines,
to attend the Imperial Conference and the coronation. During the Premier's absence, the government case will be in the vigilant charge of Finance Minister Fielding. It was expected that the departure of the Premier would mark the beginning of an educational campaign throughout the Dominion for and against reciprocity, by the leaders of both sides. Sir Wilfrid Laurier succeeded in coming to a definite agreement with Mr. R.L. Borden, the leader of the opposition, to the effect that no obstruction would be offered in the Commons to the voting of supplies, and no attempt to force an immediate election with reciprocity as an issue. After the parliamentary recess provided always that the United States Senate has, In the meantime, taken favorable action on the matter. The government expects to carry the measure through in spite of all opposition. It is expected that Parliament will again assemble in July. Soon after reassembly, the new census figures will be available. Then there will be a rearrangement of electoral divisions. If a general election should be held, the chances for reciprocity would be very much bettered, since the great Canadian West, which is now underrepresented and almost solid for reciprocity, would swell the forces behind the Premier. The West seems destined to dominate the Dominion in due time. Copyright, 1911, by the Review or Reviews Company. Sir Wilfrid Laurier, Canada's eminent Premier, now in England.
Canada.
Questions of one. This
now in England.
Review far-reaching
Canada is England.
Article on the policy
Y'all hear this?
And their
Listen.
attitude toward reciprocity, from the pen of the Hon. Albert J. Beveridge, of Indiana, whose inquiries at Ottawa and elsewhere in the Dominion during the period since his retirement from the Senate on March 4th have given him not only a store of information, but a remarkable insight into the conflicting sentiments and interests that are behind the opposing parties in the Dominion. This article will be found most vivid and illuminating. It shows how, in a quiet but well-organized way, the business forces of the older provinces of Canada. What older provinces? Hold on. Parties in the Dominion. This article will be found most vivid and illuminating. It shows how, in a quiet but well-organized way, the business forces of the older provinces of Canada equals the auctioneer from the Jainter Ocean, Chicago, Ada are opposed to reciprocity with the United States, while the growing agricultural regions of Western Canada are strongly demanding the removal of trade restrictions between them and our states stretching from Chicago to Seattle. Canada has permitted unobstructed debate both in Parliament and throughout the country, while by way of contrast the attempt has been made at Washington to jam reciprocity through, with the least possible discussion. Thus the measure was pushed through the expiring Republican House early in the year without being read or debated, while it has now gone through the Democratic House with very an unsavory catch, or the Premier's predicament. WILFR, the boy trapper? I dasn't keep it, and I don't know how to let it go. From the Globe, Toronto, the American Review of Reviews scanty debate upon its merits. It will not fail to encounter the usual processes of parliamentary bodies in its passage through the Senate. The Finance Committee has been granting hearings for several weeks, and it is expected that the month of June will be largely devoted by the senators to a debate upon the general policy of reciprocity as well as upon details of the pending agreement. Upon the broad proposition that we ought to have close trade relations with Canada, the sentiment of the United States seems to be in accord with the views of President Taft. Upon the details of the present agreement, there are wide differences of opinion, and the public at large shows no eagerness to assimilate information. To the question whether or not it was an opportune thing to push it is awful the suspense from the Spokesman Review, Spokane, reciprocity agreement with Canada from the Republican standpoint, just after the country had strongly condemned Republican tariff policies. Each political group must have its own answer. It must be admitted, certainly, that if the Republicans had swept the country in the November elections, reciprocity would have been opportune. Republican victory would have meant the maintenance for some years to come of the Payne-Aldrich tariff, and reciprocity treaties are negotiated from the standpoint of the existing general law. Yet it must be remembered that, through the late Mr. Hoyt and the other commissioners, our State Department had been negotiating this Canadian agreement long before the November elections. There is a feeling in the minds of thoughtful people that the destiny of North America is largely bound up with the results of the present movement for the progress of the world. 645 photograph by Patch, N.Y.E.N.R.Y.L. Gibson, the new Secretary of War, when Mr. Taft met M.R. Stimson in New York on Saturday. The President said to him, "Give you your first assignment as the baby member of the cabinet. TL, it will be your duty to speak before the Intercolonial Club of Boston on May 24th on the subject of reciprocity." From the New York Sun of May 16th. Special trade relations between the two halves of the continent. Thus details are ignored. The reasons
two
for
halves
intimacy
of
and
the
harmony between the
continent
Dominion and the United States relate not
of the
merely
one
to our own
continent.
Western Hemisphere affairs, but to the peace and
I'm gonna
welfare of
rewind
the
that.
whole world.
Listen again.
It is not special trade relations between the two halves of the continent. Thus details are
The
ignored.
two halves
The
of the
reasons for intimacy
continent
and harmony between the
of
Dominion
one
and the United States
continent.
relate not merely to our own Western Hemisphere affairs, but to the peace
They
and
tell you
welfare
it's
of the
separate,
whole
but it
world.
ain't.
It is not
There
for the
they
best
go.
permanent interest of Canada that her larger policies should be dictated from Westminster, or that she should regard herself as destined in a self-abnegating way to serve the purposes of the British Empire. We have never hesitated in this review to say, with all neighborly frankness, that Canada ought not to have taken any part in the South African struggle.
That part.
Canada has a certain relationship with
shit
the
to do
United
with it.
Kingdom, and the United Kingdom need of close Canadian relations has a certain relationship with South Africa, but Canada has no relationship with South Africa, and was ill-advised in participating in a war between Great Britain and the Boer colonies.
Getting in they
Canada's
shit.
real guarantee of safety and quiet within her own domain does not lie at all in her being a part of the British Empire. Her security now, as for a long time past, lies in the neighborliness and in the fixed policy of the United States. If England and Germany were engaged in warfare, over some question having to do with Africa, for instance, it would not be fitting that Germany should carry the operations of war into American waters or upon American soil. The United States could not permit German conquest or occupation of Canada, in case of such a war between Germany and England. But if Canada herself had furnished large quotas of men, ships, and munitions of war,
the Canadian
and
fur
had made
trade,
herself an active
all part
ally
of
of England in a
America,
struggle that had not primarily concerned
not
the Dominion,
separate from
it is
you.
obvious that Germany would be fighting not only Great Britain but also Canada. And under those circumstances, the laws of war would justify Germany in attacking Canadian ports and in transferring the theater of conflict to Canadian soil, if reasons of strategy so required. This would mean that the Dominion had voluntarily abandoned her position of absolute peace and safety, for the foolish and futile purpose of becoming part and parcel of the hurly-burly of European militarism. Canada does not like our political system, and it is true that in some respects the Canadian system works better than ours. But Canada's general relationships, as neighbor and intimate associate, ought to be with the United States. A development of the British tie that had as its object the creation of a military power along our northern frontier, would inevitably bring about, as its logical effect, an annexation movement that would have unpleasant Canada's destiny at stake features. Canada needs, practically, neither army nor navy. If she abstains from the sword, she will be protected and defended in every emergency. Her close cooperation with the United States need not diminish her ties of sentiment with the United Kingdom. It would, on the other hand, tend to strengthen the good understanding of the English-speaking world. Reciprocity as a way of committing the two halves of North America to a future of closer relationships is a thing to be advocated. Meanwhile, there can be no sound reason why every item of the pending measure should not be discussed upon its merits, precisely as in the case of any other tariff bill. If the sentiment for reciprocity in the two countries is of such dubious strength that it requires that this particular measure be gulped down with closed eyes lest no sort of reciprocity could otherwise ever be agreed upon, then it would seem as if the subject had better wait for further maturing of public opinion. Apart from the higher logic of reciprocity, there is a vast deal of practical politics involved. About WHCH, the general public
in which
is not
the general
enlightened.
public is not
Section 2
enlightened.
of the pending measure gives the newspapers of the country free wood pulp and free white paper. So far as one can learn, this is the sole reason why there is any urgency. The report upon pulp and paper, the American Review of Reviews about the treaty. The newspapers want their free paper, and nobody can blame them for being cordial toward a measure that is designed to promote their particular welfare. In the long run, however, it would probably not be the advantage of the newspapers to secure any freedom of importation that would seriously cripple the American paper mills. A very interesting and valuable report upon the cost of wood pulp and paper in this country and Canada was transmitted to the Senate late last month as the completed work of the Tariff Board. In a general way, it shows that the labor cost is about the same in both countries, but that the wood from which the pulp is ground is very much cheaper in Euroanada than in the United States. President Taft's speeches on behalf of reciprocity as a general policy have been strong and influential. When he appointed Mr. Stimson, of New York, as the new Secretary of War, it was with the instruction, as reported in the press,
Listen at the
that his first
instruction.
assignment to duty would be the making of a reciprocity speech in Boston. The lumber interests have been very active in working against reciprocity, and as a more or less fitting coincidence, the Department of Justice late last month began a formidable prosecution of certain lumber interests associated in alleged conspiracies for the restraint of trade. The resignation of Secretary Dickinson, of the War Department, had not been expected by the country. It was denied that there were any reasons of an administrative or political character for his retirement from the cabinet. Mr. Dickinson has always been a member of the Democratic Party, but, like many Democratic lawyers, he supported Mr. Taft in 1908. Secretary Dickinson retires watching his boundaries from the Public Ledger, Philadelphia. The Progress of the World 647 copyright by the American Press Association, N.Y. Hon. Jacob M. Dickinson, who retired from the cabinet late in May. It was frankly explained that private interests required the attention of the retiring secretary, and he has gone out of office with universal respect and esteem. He was willing to remain longer if the situation on the Mexican frontier rendered a change at the head of the War Department temporarily inexpedient. But more favorable prospects in that quarter made it evident that a change could as well be made now as at some later time. President Taft said, "In every way your work has been admirable."
This is important, but listen very closely to this. I wanted to get to this page so you can hear this, and we're going to get ready to get to the next item. If I don't get out of here, let's go.
"And entitles you to the gratitude of your countrymen." Mr. Stimson assumes great re-secretary responsibilities as the head of the War Department, but all who know him believe that the president has chosen a man fully equal in ability and character to cope with the wide range of administrative duties that has devolved successively upon Mr. Root, Mr. Taft himself, General Luke Wright, and Mr. Dickinson. For it must be remembered that the administrative side of the Army itself is no small undertaking. While the War Department has also the oversight of our affairs in the West Indies and in the Pacific Ocean, including the Philippines, and directs the construction of the Panama Canal. Mr. Stimson is in his 44th year, and has been practicing law in New York for about 20 years. He had the advantage of beginning his practical law work as a clerk in the office of the Honorable Elihu Root, and he was admitted to partnership in Mr. Root's firm within a short period. President Roosevelt made him United States District Attorney, and his prosecution of Custom House frauds in the case of the Sugar Trust gave him a wide reputation. His nomination for governor at Saratoga last year, in a convention where Mr. Roosevelt assumed leadership, will be well remembered by everyone interested in politics. Before the Saratoga convention was held, it was freely predicted that the Republicans would lose the state of New York by a majority of 200,000. Governor Dix's majority turned out to be just 70,000. If the Stimson campaign had lasted 4 weeks longer, and some measures had, photographed by G.G. Bain, New York, Hon. C.S. Millington, in charge of the sub-treasury at New York, been taken to get out the Republican vote in the country districts, there would have been a possible chance of Republican victory. As a balancing of honors between the two wings of the party in New York, Mr. Taft has named Honorable C.S. Millington, of Herkimer, as Assistant Treasurer of the United States in New York City. Mr. Millington is a close friend of Vice President Sherman, and succeeded him in the House of Representatives, serving in the last Congress. In the current number of the Atlantic Monthly there is an article by Mr. John Bigelow, Jr., entitled "If the United States Should Go to War." It analyzes carefully our actual and potential military strength, makes allusion to possible sources of trouble, and shows what might happen in case of invasion. It amounts to a strong argument in favor of being prepared for defense. This country will not be tempted to adopt any program of military efficiency aggression. Its strength will be used to keep peace and order in the world. Military efficiency, far from being a crime, may well be regarded as high statesmanship and national virtue. It is the plain duty of the United States to be so strong and so well prepared that no restless nation in some turbulent or the American Review of Reviews transitional mood might be tempted by our neglect or slovenliness to enter upon a harmful war.
Slovenliness.
If our Navy had been more highly developed and our Army in better shape 14 years ago, we should have had no war with Spain. The Cuban question could have been settled by negotiation, and our responsibilities in the Philippines need not have been assumed. It is to be hoped that M.R. Stimson will hold firmly to the view that high military efficiency on the part of a Pacific country like ours involves no threat of international war, but, on the contrary, is an added guarantee of international peace. The great policies of Mr. Root as Secretary of War enormously improved our military efficiency, and Mr. Taft as Secretary of War followed along the same lines. The subsequent contributions of Mr. Root as Secretary of State toward the progress of peace and arbitration were in full accord with what he had done as Secretary of War. Mr. Root, Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Taft, and Mr. Knox have all rendered the most distinguished and world-famed services to the cause of peace among the nations. Yet they have all advocated strength and efficiency in our Army and Navy and our coast fortifications. The Navy at a dinner of the Economic Club as Ensuring of New York on May 22nd, the sub-peace-ject for discussion was international arbitration, its economic and political aspects.
It's in the outline.
Among other distinguished
it's the script.
Guests and speakers was the Secretary of the Navy, Honorable George B. L. Meyer. Mr. Meyer plunged straight into the subject of naval efficiency, and some friends of peace and arbitration might have been shocked and might have regarded M.R. Meyer's crisp and pointed discussion of warships, expert gunnery, proper organization of the administrative bureaus, and the like, as quite out of keeping with an occasion devoted to the praise of arbitration as a remedy for armies and fleets. But Mr. Meyer, who is putting a very high degree of scientific business skill into the management of Uncle Sam's Navy,
I'm gonna show this
is arguing along the sound and safe line.
Read a couple of pages.
As a matter of fact, no international police system has yet been constructed. If a high and universal court of arbitration existed, there would have to be some arrangement for the enforcement of its mandates. Until that time comes, a peace-loving nation like the United States, influentially situated and without serious reasons for being embroiled with any other country, owes it to itself and to the whole world to be in a position to make its advocacy. The progress of the world of peace a respected doctrine. Mr. Meyer ended his address as follows: the fleet on July 1st will be made up of 21 battleships. Its being kept in its entirety is a safeguard to the nation and its military efficiency and insurance against war. The fleet will be made up of a battleship for the Commander-in-Chief, and 4 divisions of 5 ships each, 4 of each division being kept in active commission and the 5th of each division, in turn, at the Navy Yards for overhauling. The policy of the future, however, is for the fleet to maintain itself and make its own repairs, as far as possible, going to the Navy Yards only for docking and alterations and for such repairs as cannot be made at sea. The importance of keeping the units together is self-evident. The reduction of the number of repairs at Navy Yards will reduce the number of Navy Yards required, and it is important that Congress should be aroused to the necessity of reducing the number of yards on the Atlantic coast, which is a great drain, not only on the cost of the Navy, but an unnecessary tax on the people of the country. To bring this about will require broad views and patriotic treatment, and the sentiment of the country should demand of Congress these requirements and the abolishment of yards which are unnecessary to the Navy. I ask your support on patriotic and sound economic principles.
We're gonna stop right there. We're gonna stop right there. We're gonna go here. Let's go. Because I got a little more time here, so I'm gonna do this before I get up out of here to confirm this, right? Check this out. This particular document is the history of the Marine Corps. They roles and they missions. Aren't y'all interested? If y'all hear a little bit about y'all, gonna be even more interested. I can't get too much into it, but we'll do a little bit more in part 4. I definitely want you guys to see some of this as well as it coincides. Just pay attention. This will be on members only right after this live. So if you're watching it, I suggest that you pause the video so that you're able to still see the stream. I'm not sure if so, when it ends, if you need to rewind it, because it will be on members only. So let's go.
Today in Unified Action Armed Forces. 23. Service on armed vessels of the Navy during the days of sail. The duties of a marine afloat remained much as James Fenimore Cooper had depicted them. Admiral Farragut described the Marine Guard as one of the great essentials of a man of war for the preservation of order and maintenance of discipline. They work and fight their guns well. It is next to impossible to maintain the efficiency of the ship and proper discipline without the restraint of the soldiers over the sailors. 24. In 1866, the Committee on Naval Affairs of the House of Representatives had this to say about Marines afloat: their discipline, equipment, character, and esprit de corps being that of the soldier, they necessarily give to the ship of war its military character. As sentinels they watch over the magazines, storerooms, gangways, galleys, and all lights and fires required for the use of the ship. They guard all the public property and all prisoners of war, and at all times sustain and protect the discipline of a man of war by their organization, distinctive character, and peculiar training. 25. With the building of the new steam-powered Navy of armored ships and long-range guns, the attitude of officers of the Navy towards Marines afloat changed. Marines were no longer considered to be essential to the efficiency and discipline of a ship. Lieutenant William F. Fulham, USN, in 1890, described Marines afloat as harmful to the Blue Jackets, preventing their development of a military spirit and depriving them of the opportunity to develop trustworthiness by taking responsibility. 26. Efforts to remove Marines from ships were made by a group of Navy officers in 189 and 1895, but they were rejected by the Secretary of the Navy. These efforts continued, however, and were culminated in 1908 in Executive Order 969, which caused the removal of Marines from naval vessels. 27. In the following year, the removal became a subject of congressional investigation. Speaking for the Navy, Rear Admiral John E. Pillsbury, Chief of the Bureau of Navigation, testified as follows: "The Blue Jacket of today is an entirely different character from the old-time sailor who was drafted into the service with the aid of a press gang, and who needed soldiers over him to enforce discipline and prevent lawless acts. The present enlisted force of the Navy does not, in the Bureau's opinion, require a different force to maintain order in it any more than the soldiers of an army garrison need a differently uniformed and paid class of men to act as police over them. That the great majority of the enlisted force of the Navy are self-respecting and law-abiding, and that they resent the suggestion that a different force is needed to maintain order among them, are well-known facts." 28.
They know how to have their own order.
However, did not share the Navy's opinion. Some, such as Colonel L.W.T. Waller, believed that Marines were still needed to preserve discipline aboard ship. The Commandant, Major General George F. Elliott, stressed the importance to the Marines of service afloat. "The advantage of having them aboard ship is the fact that they learn the ship's way," he informed the House subcommittee in rebuttal to Admiral Pillsbury. "They also learn aboard ship to obey the orders of any officer. They come quickly to military calls and they are obedient and under excellent discipline. If they are taken out and landed ashore for an expeditionary force, they can be easily transported in vessels or landed in small boats, and they are absolutely equipped with everything that the infantry needs to live on shore except draft animals." 29. By attaching a rider to the Naval Appropriation Bill, Congress prevented the removal of Marines from ships. But sea duty as a mission for the Marine Corps rapidly dwindled in importance as fewer and fewer Marines were assigned to it. In 1898, nearly half of the Marine Corps' strength had been engaged in sea duty, but by the end of World War I, only 2% of the Corps was serving afloat. Other duties, even more difficult and responsible, were now occupying the energies of the Marine Corps. Executive Order 969, of November 12, 1908, was the first written directive from higher authority to specify what missions were included in any other duty on shore, as the President, at his discretion, shall direct. When Marines had been ordered off the ships, General Elliott had protested to President Theodore Roosevelt that all the Marine officers I could reach believed it would be the death knell of the Marine Corps. The President had asked General Elliott whether he personally believed removal would be the death knell of the Corps, to which the Commandant replied that I did not, that we were overworked now, and that they all be assigned duties of great importance. 30. The President then requested General Elliott to draft a paper setting forth what these important duties should be. Such a paper was submitted, and the missions enumerated in it were incorporated verbatim in Executive Order 969. The Navy regulations issued in 1920 retained, exactly as stated, that portion of the 1909 edition of the regulations dealing with the Marine Corps' assigned missions. Service on board armed vessels of the United States was specifically stipulated in Article 552. 3 Marines may be detached for service on board the armed vessels of the United States, and the President may detach and appoint, for service on said vessels, such officers of said corps as he may deem necessary. 31. This article, additionally forceful in that it had been enacted into law as Section L6 of the revised statutes, remained in the Navy regulations until 1948, when passage of the National Defense Act of 19 to the power of 7th called for rewriting the regulations to conform to the new statute. Interventions in foreign countries as rioted earlier. The Act of 1798 provided that the Marine Corps should be liable to perform any other duty on shore, as the President, at his discretion, shall direct. Neither the language of the law itself nor the existing records of the debates concerning it provide any clue as to what the framers of the legislation intended these additional duties to be. But only 2 years were to elapse before a Marine force from the Constitution landed on foreign soil at Puerto Plata, Santo Domingo to spike the guns of a fort, while seamen from the American frigate seized a French letter of marque in the harbor. Justification for the act was that the United States was then engaged in an undeclared naval war with France to protect American commerce on the high seas. This intervention on foreign soil in time of peace was the first of many since carried out by the Marine Corps.
Against the people, not
commerce,
right?
Political, to support a national interest,
and
non-justification for, but only 2 years were to elapse before a Marine force from the Constitution landed on foreign soil at Puerto Plata, Santo Domingo to spike the guns of a fort, while seamen from the American frigate seized a French letter of marque in the harbor. Justification for the act was that the United States was then engaged in an undeclared naval war with France to protect American commerce on the high seas. This intervention on foreign soil in time of peace was the first of many since carried out by the Marine Corps. Interventions are of 2 general types: political, to support a national interest, and non-political, to protect the persons and property of individual citizens. Marines have been employed in both types. After 1848, Marines were involved in the various applications of force employed by the United States in establishing relations with Oriental countries, particularly Japan, China, and Korea. 32. After the building of a new navy in the 90s, and the acquisition of world power status resulting from the Spanish-American War, incidents of United States political as well as non-political intervention became more frequent. Marines saw service in China and in such Latin American countries as Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico. The United States has resorted to non-political intervention for the protection of U.S. citizens and their property aboard, probably more often than any other nation. 33. Marines have been engaged in such operations all over the globe. Efforts to suppress piracy in the Mediterranean and Caribbean were among the first instances of non-political intervention. However, landings to protect our citizens where the local government was unwilling or unable to do so have been the most frequent. In scope, such interventions have ranged from the landing of a handful of Marines and sailors from a warship, such as the operation at Kuala Batu, Sumatra, in 1831, to the employment of a provisional regiment of about 500 Marines from the 1st Marine Regiment in the Boxer Relief Expedition of 1900. Until the late 80s, Marine interventions were carried out by Marine detachments of warships. In 1885, however, 2 specially organized battalions went ashore at Colon in what is now the Panama Canal Zone. Interventions following the Spanish-American War became more frequent, requiring the use of more and more troops. Reflecting, at least in part, this increasing use of Marines in foreign operations, Executive Order 969 of 1908 provided a specific directive for the Marine Corps to furnish such garrisons and expeditionary forces for duties beyond the seas as may be necessary in time of peace. The same language was repeated in Navy regulations beginning in 1909. It is interesting to note that in 1927, the Marine Corps maintained forces of brigade size in China, Nicaragua, and Haiti. These troops added up to about 9,000 Marines, and accounted for approximately 50% of the Marine Corps' strength. 3. Training foreign military forces, a byproduct of the marine occupations of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Nicaragua, was the necessity to organize and train military forces for these countries. There were 2 purposes behind this subsidiary mission: a short-range goal, to relieve Marines by utilizing native manpower, and a long-range one, to provide stability through indigenous police and military forces capable of preserving internal law and order. The local government would then be able to discharge its international obligations and avoid the danger of European intervention. 2 misunderstandings as to the status of the Marine Corps as an intervening force need to be clarified. First, the use of Marines rather than Army forces does not classify an operation as legitimate intervention rather than an act of war. No such distinction was made by the Department of State in right to protect citizens in foreign countries by landing forces. One of the basic principles laid down in that publication is that the use of the forces of the United States in foreign countries to protect the lives and property of American citizens does not constitute an act of war / 35. In practice, this principle has been upheld by the employment of Army troops as well as Marine units as intervening forces on various occasions. Second, the phrase "any other duty on shore," as the President shall direct, does not confer on the President a special power to employ Marines in situations where he could not employ the other services. 36. Right to protect citizens states that the President, as the chief executive of the nation charged with the responsibility of conducting our foreign intercourse, including the protection of our citizens abroad, has the authority to use the forces of the United States to secure such protection in foreign countries. 37. Operations in support of other services. Another Marine Corps mission under any other duty on shore, as the President shall direct, has been service in support of the Armed and Air Force in land and air warfare. Foreshadowed BV the participation of Continental Marines under Washington in the Trenton-Princeton campaign. The United States Marine Corps first served in this capacity in the Creek and Seminole Wars of 18-6-1842. A battalion of Marines was in General Winfield Scott's army which captured Mexico City in the Mexican War, and another was present at the First Battle of Bull Run in the Civil War. In World War I, 2 brigades saw service with the American Expeditionary Force in France, although only one of them saw action. The reason for assignment of Marines to this mission has usually been one of simple expediency to reinforce the Army with trained regular troops when necessary. Marines, if not engaged in some more important duty, have been made available for service with the Army when reinforcements have been required. In 1836, a force of about 1,000 regular Army troops was attempting to subdue more than 3 times that number of Semiles. Fighting then broke out with the Creeks, making reinforcement urgent.
It says Semiles. Actually, y'all know that says Seminoles. It says after reinforcements have been required in 1836, a force of about 1,000 regular Army troops were attempting to subdue more than 3 times that number of Seminoles. They were attempting to try to subdue 3,000 Seminole Indians. Fighting then broke out with the Creeks, making reinforcement urgent. So now they needed more reinforcement because they fought and broke up into battle with the Creeks, making more reinforcement urgent. It says President Jackson eagerly accepted the offer of a Marine regiment by the commandant, Colonel Archibald Henderson. President Polk was similarly motivated in 1847 when he ordered Marines and reinforced General Winfield Scott's army in Mexico. General Henderson stated that 6 companies of Marines could be spared from the Navy for land service. 6 companies from the Navy, taking them off the water onto the land, could be spared from the Navy for land service, wrote the president in his wrote the president in his diary. I have written an order to the Secretary of the Navy to transfer them to the land forces under the immediate command of General Scott. I deemed it important that the General Scott's column should be reinforced with all of our available forces with as little delay as possible. Yeah, y'all got over 4,000 Indians, I'm sure, because once the Creeks added in, may have been another 2,000, clearly maybe 5,000. They didn't know what to do. They had to bring all the forces in. It says, for the Battle of Bull Run, the Union commanders needed every available man and pressed into service in 348 Marines. Then at the Marine Barracks in Washington, the Marines participated in no other land campaigns with the Army, nor with the Civil War commandants. Particularly vigorous in pressing for such a mission. Unlike Henderson, they were apparently content to tend to routine administration from a Washington desk. Significantly, an effort was made to abolish the Marine Corps in 1866. Evidently, the Marine Corps had not made enough of an impression either on the people or the Congress to make its position unchallengeable. So right now, we're going to end this. I'm going to play this video real quick. On the way out, let's see what's going on with this, with the scam alert, right? It's a scam alert out by Mama T. I'm going to share it, and we'll be out after this. Peace, love, and bliss to everybody that came in. I hope you got some edification and learning from this that will help you in any type of way. Do any of this stuff I'll be trying to help you guys with, but, or, you go and get entertained somewhere, either or. I love you guys. You're still the best. I like to be entertained sometimes myself. So peace, love, and bliss. After this video, we are out. All right. You guys have a great one. Let me see if it can go down a little bit. Oh, no, it went over. Let me read.
Look at this fucking pineapple.
Oh, that shit.
I know.
Oh, that looked disgusting. Hold on, y'all.
Look at this fucking pineapple. I know.
Wait, hold on, y'all. I definitely want to play that. It went to that video. I was trying to play another one and it went.
It's only a week old. There's no fucking way all of this white shit is supposed to be coming up out of this pineapple. What the fuck is this? I buy pineapples all the time and I never seen this shit happen. Yeah. Even if I don't get to eat it, it'll get old, but it don't have this white stuff coming up out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck?
Disgusting.
These motherfuckers is literally killing us with food.
Every day.
I had a dream last night. They putting the fucking virus inside the food. That was my dream was showing me. It was like writing on the wall with symbols, squares, and lines going to each symbol. Yeah, that's what the dream I had last night. This shit is fucking crazy. And then the cantaloupe, look at this. A week old, and this is what it looked like? A fucking week old? This is some bullshit.
Facts. And all facts. I'm going to play one more because I did pull the video back up. Another scam alert. I'm not sure what it's about, but let's check it out. Mama T says it's a scam alert. I haven't watched it, but I want to see it because it got sent to me.
Babies, Mama will never inbox you asking you for $25 for a reading.
Oh, people do
And you
that.
cash app me your $25 and it says for reading. Anybody cash app me $25 for reading, I'm declining it. I'm not hard up for your money. And trust me, when I do start my astrological consultations, it's going to be way more than $25. And I will never inbox you asking you for nothing. I will post it myself.
I know that's right. Peace, love, and bliss. And I am out, guys. Much love to everyone. Yeah.